Hello and welcome to Mirror Realm. My name's Nick, known as Wyvern on the Discord servers. In today's episode, we'll be looking at the big, or what feels like the big, announcement for Gothic. To us, this feels huge. We'll be talking about it, our initial thoughts. Jarrod is on the call, I believe. Is that right?
Hello.
He is there. I think we'll just jump into it and we'll read through it, I guess. And I'm excited enough about this one to actually read the text, so let's do it. So, what you can carry with you: a first look at the collection and deck sizes in Gothic.
I think deck sizes is a very important part here as well. Going 60-30 instead of 60-40 is so impactful, I think.
Oh, you're jumping ahead already.
Oh, it's in the title.
Is it? It didn't say the numbers.
And deck sizes.
Spoiler alert! If somebody hadn't seen it yet. Alright, we'll get there. I'll try and get there fast. The upcoming Gothic set doesn't just delve into shadowy new themes. It brings long brewing gameplay updates into the light. During development, our team tackled a simple but critical design question. Does Sorcery need a sideboard? And if so, how do you build one that works in a best of one world without feeling like it wandered in from another game? I think I said that like it's a statement and not a question. Apologies.
I think you might want to zoom in a bit, actually, as well.
Yeah,
just
let's zoom in a bit.
browser.
Alright, is that enough?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I don't know if we just park for... maybe let's not park, let's just keep going. Because I'll just side note my thoughts here about... Maybe it's just worth a little quick discussion around sideboard. Like, I like the change, but I do think if just a note to have a quick discussion about sideboards and best of three and that sort of and this type of stuff, because we have talked about these types of things a lot in the past, just between ourselves, right? So I think we will derail a little bit at some point and go into our thoughts generally in that space for the game. So. Right, and then we have a spoiler for a new card, which we will come back to because it's relevant to the rest of the announcement. Enter the collection. This question led us to something new, something flavorful, flexible, and wholly sorcery. The result is the collection, a perfectly flavorful word that in plain English and casual play literally means the cards you own that aren't in the game. In more formal settings, such as tournaments, the collection is a set of 10 cards. I mean, it says in more formal settings, but honestly, who's ever playing not? Like, I would... Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, 90-something towards 100% of the time, like, this is how everyone's just going to play collection, even when it's not in a tournament. I'm pretty sure. Whenever I play, I'm pretty sure, for example, whenever you play online against anyone, like whenever we play, it's always just going to be 10. We're not going to expect people to bring in some binders with all of their collection to swap and stuff like that.
I think the collection part is mostly just for the kitchen tabletop crew, right?
I guess so.
I think
yeah.
That's what I mean by it.
Yep. But I don't know who. Maybe that. Yep. Okay. Yep. Sure. But even then, it's a bit much.
If you're playing at home, you just run off to the other room. Like, it's part of my collection.
So. That's a reason to want to host it every week instead of going over someone else's house and having to bring, boxes of cards with you just in case you need one. But, yeah, I'm not sure. I would have thought... Okay, let's park that, because we're not really that player, I guess, right? But whatever this is, the kitchen, whatever, so I'm not even sure... Like, I've never seen any, I don't even know who that is. So, I guess it's somebody, though. But, anyway, the point I'm trying to say here is that it is called the collection, but 90-something% of all Sorcery games ever played, I'm pretty sure is actually going to be playing in this arrangement with the 10 cards. And under that arrangement, the name is a little bit misleading.
I think one reason to call it the collection versus just saying it's your sideboard is... If at some point down the line they revisit the fact that they want sideboards, they don't have to rename this. You can have like a collection that you tutor for with all these cards that interact with your collection, and then you can have like an actual sideboard as well.
Possibly.
So that might be another line.
Oh, I'm not sure if it should be. I'm not advocating that it should be called sideboard, but whatever. I don't have as much of a some of the other names had more of an issue with, like interacting with the realm, for example. Than this one. No real issue there. All I'm really trying to say is
it's still a collection of cards outside the game, right?
My gut feel here overall, though, is that nearly all games of Sorcery that people are actually playing, and this is not going to extend to the vast library at home. It's just going to extend to these 10 cards. But, whatever, fine. In gameplay terms, this means some cards, especially those debuting in Gothic, can now reference your collection. I wonder, is there any cards that aren't in Gothic? Should this say in gameplay terms, that means that some cards, exclusively those debuting in Gothic.
Eric's Furiosa.
Oh, yeah. Yep, there you go. The one card that nobody ever plays. Side note, I would be very interested to know what officially the rules are for Eric Curiosa in the...
does it say get a card from your collection?
Yeah.
If it says that, it'll be under these rules, and I would assume.
I would assume so. So I would assume that's the case. My bigger question is, what happens post ripping the card up in regards to future rounds and your deck list? And now you're gonna fail deck checks now because you don't have the card in your deck anymore. Are you expected to bring your reserve of Eric's Curiouses with you, and every time you rip one up, you have to put another one in your deck for the next round?
That's the way it should work.
Okay. Well, I doubt anyone's going to have a reserve of Eric's Curiouses with them. So
so just nobody gets to play it.
Well,
that's maybe. I'm fine with that.
But it's officially, there is no ban list. So officially, I believe you can play the card. And all I'm saying is, I'd rather not assume anything. I'd rather know how it's going to work. That's all I'm saying. Because somebody's going to do it. Basically, someone's going to bring it. And it would feel particularly bad to be the one person to lose a game to it in the whole tournament. And you just like to know how it's going to work. Right. Okay, so it's a side pool of cards. This collection allows you to create a wide variety of evocative effects. Okay, I mean, they're not all cool. Alright, I'm not going to get too
they're trying to be flavorful.
They're trying to be flavorful. It's like...
You're nitpicking away.
Yeah, I am. It's like, what? I'm only allowed to play cards that are evocative. What if I want to play something that isn't evocative in there? I'm not allowed to do it?
It also probably comes down to what people consider evocative as well.
It does. That feels like... Yeah, that feels like a big rabbit hole to go down if that was officially a rule that the effects had to be evocative, but I'm pretty sure they don't. I think that's just them, like you said, trying to be flavorful. And because Sorcery is nothing if not stylish, this allows us to avoid bogging cards down with a lot of technical information. Instead of cast an ordinary 1-2 power mortal earth minion, we get to say, sort of, maybe, okay. I mean, yes, sort of.
The thing I bumped up against when I read this is the second line's barely shorter than the first line. But you also get no context as to what a townsfolk is.
Yeah. And, doesn't it already exist?
And what if there's something else called townsfolk? Like, if something comes out as a townsfolk is like a creature type, then can you all of a sudden start playing townsfolk creature type things off of this site now? Things like that. It's probably more likely to happen with the one above it, the ghoul one. But, yeah, it's very...
I assume so. But yeah, I don't know. All I'm really thinking is, doesn't this already sort of exist in the game anyways? Like, I'm pretty sure there's things like a village that says pay 1 mana to summon a foot soldier here.
Yep. But I think, yeah.
But obviously, I guess you don't want to necessarily create... Not going to get too hooked up on it, fine. I think... sure. I guess if... Okay, so let's flip this around. I think the example is bad. Like you said, it's nearly the same amount of text. But for example, this would be cast an ordinary 1-2 powered mortal earth minion with charge and airborne and comes into play tapped, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? And obviously that's way more text than just saying cast the special townsfolk that has those, cast Townsfolk X or whatever from your collection. So I think the example doesn't make it as glaringly obvious as what it could be in regards to conveying the point, which is that the card can have a ton of text, and the other thing can just say cast the card, right? So fine. Because this collection exists outside the game, it gives players an active sideboard. So they are using the term sideboard but calling it something else. I think if you've got hope set aside that they're also going to add a sideboard on top of this, I would say...
I mean, I don't have hopes.
But, I don't think they will ever do
leaves
that
option open.
Well, it would leave that option open, I suppose, to anybody arranging their own tournament, but I can't see... I think this is in lieu of. I don't think this is intended to be as well as, basically. So... a flexible toolbox of up to 10 cards that can be accessed mid-game. This leans into Sorcery's best of one identity while opening up room for more adaptive counterplay. Whether you're packing a silver bullet or a clutch support piece, the collection encourages tight, thoughtful deck building. It's not just what you have in your hand, it's what's hidden up your sleeve. Right, we'll get to these cards. I mean, I think... let's just go through and talk about the mechanic for a second before we go through all the cards. So, bigger deck, a bigger toolbox. And this is where they go about the deck sizes. So it's time for us to move to our intended deck sizes. After a year of extensive deck testing, deck brewing, and listening to feedback, we've decided that the ideal place to land for the decks is 60 cards for the spellbook and 30 cards for the Atlas. Combine that with a small 10-card collection and you'll be ready to contest any realms you so desire. Some of you may have noticed that our recent rules update didn't include a mention about deck sizes. That's because we need the card pool to reach a certain depth to support the change. So with that in mind, the final deck size change will go into effect with the release of Gothic. Is there more text still? We'll discuss that, but I'll just finish the announcement so we can just build what you bring. The collection mechanic represents a new way to think about flexibility with Sorcery. It's not just about hard counters or deep meta reads. It's about storytelling tools. Your deck is your journey. Your collection, that's your rucksack of mysterious odds and ends, full of things that might save the day or doom it. So as you prepare for the creeping dread of Gothic, ask yourself, what are you bringing with you? Okay, until next time. So just scan back up to the top, and I think you want to start with deck sizes. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, I think it'll be quicker than each card individually. So
the first thing I would say is this. Well, the way I read this is that this is not an interim stop. This is, well, as it says here, the final deck size. The wording on this to me very much implies that 60, 30, and 10, I suppose, is the intended final landing spot. And it isn't like something that is going to be like, next set's release, let's up it to 65, 35 or whatever. So I think we talk about it through that lens, that this is the final landing spot, because I think, is it possible to read it differently?
I mean, that's how I read it. I don't see
obviously
how you
it doesn't say, and we promise that we'll never change our mind or anything like that, but obviously why would they? And there's reason, go far enough into the future, maybe you would need to change it potentially, but this very much sounds like the wording on this is strong enough that if the set after Gothic comes out and they want it and they change the amounts, that eyebrows will be raised and people would, I'm pretty sure people will be upset and complain about it, because this is, I don't know, I'm not getting a sense of ambiguity in this wording. It feels clear.
No, it feels like this is where they're happy and this is where it's staying.
So, I think it was not, I mean, I'd heard at various points, I don't know if it was officially or not. It's hard because but I definitely heard at various points that maybe it would, like 60-40 mentioned at various points. I'm sure of that. I know we would be discussing about that, about the prospect of the Atlas getting bigger and that not being ideal for certain things in the game.
It certainly removes a lot of consistency to mana bases, and mostly it was like 2 element decks that got hurt or single element decks that were actually hurt more than like 3 and 4 element. Mostly because, like, I mean, if they printed like another set of like dual sites effectively, then it probably could go up again. But without that, you know, those extra 10 sites not being great fixing really hurt for 2 element in particular.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also with just broadly anyway, like in a game, there's only so many sites you're going to draw in a game. There's only so many you're going to play. And for some decks, that's 4. Is that about the lowest end that 3, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, 3's the lowest, but yeah, 4's more reasonable.
But probably those decks, they did involve a bunch of cores and stuff that you probably wouldn't want to go that all in anymore. So probably 4, I think, is the least. And yeah, whatever, it can be more than 10, but 10 is kind of somewhat the upper limit, just on the basis that it's not often you get to play more than 10, right?
No.
Obviously, technically speaking, you can play 20, right? Technically, it just never basically happens, right? So, but all I'm really trying to say is, depending on the deck, you're broadly looking at somewhere between 4 and 10 sites you're going to play in a game, and you know, in a 40 card atlas, like 4 sites is only a tenth, right? And 10 is only a quarter.
Yeah,
so,
and under the current, you know, like the difference between a quarter and a third is pretty big, right? If they went to 40.
I mean, even at 30, it's still pretty, like, I mean, we're touching on the point, but even at 30, it's very difficult to achieve consistency, any kind of consistency at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference between 30 and 20, it's the difference between going a third and a half, right? So that's massive.
And at 40, it would be, I don't know, just the amount of games that you're just going to just randomly lose because... like, but we play games where you'll just lose, right? Because you have a deck with 2 elements, and like you draw 8 sites and they're all the same element, right?
Yeah. And
it's incredibly unlikely, but it happens. And actually, the bigger the atlas, the more chance there is of that type of phenomenon happening. And at 20 sites, that would almost never happen, as well. And it is as in at 20 sites, if you had, say, 10 of one element, 10 of another element, the odds that the first 8 would all be the same. It's almost impossible, basically. So,
and then on top of all that, then when you take into consideration like unique sites existing, you know, once it's 1 in 40, effectively, you know, you're almost never going to see them.
Yeah.
Over a significant amount of time.
So, I mean, we were really happy to see the 30, pretty much, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure. It's just the game becomes... I think it's important, particularly in the case of... we'll go through the rest of the changes, but I believe there's pretty clear signals here that they are not intending... Like, they're trying to keep it in a best-of-1 format. That's how I'm reading this. I mean, they almost literally said it, I'm pretty sure, at one point in this announcement. And if you want to have any kind of a competitive scene, which it seems like they do, because they literally just had the Star City Games announcement, right? So,
well, yeah, they announced like the whole rest of the year of like, you know, a bunch of different tournaments, right? So clearly want it.
If you want to keep it best of 1 and you want it to be competitive, which that's... You know, you're not exactly reading between the lines. It's basically explicitly said. It's all laid on the table. Then it becomes more important than it otherwise would be that the game is less random, basically, right? That, as in, it having 30 cards in the Atlas becomes a more paramount importance than going to 40. Because it would be very hard to sort of have a competitive game that's best of 1 when, you know, some massive percentage of the games are basically just decided via like thresholds, getting sort of screwed over on your thresholds and stuff like that. Like it's weird because in a way, like one of the best things about Sorcery is that it has sort of solved the biggest issue with Magic the Gathering in regards to just it being really frustrating with how the mana system works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you basically never had mana issues when it was 40-20, and now it creeps up a little bit in 50-30. So I could imagine, if it went to 60-40, it would be probably like at least another 3 or 4 sets before there'd even be enough fixing to make 40 even work consistently. And then everyone would start getting the old mana thresholds for Magic.
As well. That is just thresholds. That doesn't take into account that you might want your deck to actually do stuff and that you need specific sites to achieve those things as well.
Yes, that too.
But all I'm really trying to say is just, obviously you want there to be a random... It's a card game at the end of the day. Of course there's a luck and random element. But, like, if you want it to be best of one and you want it to be competitive, like, there's only so random it can be, right? Before it's just a... it's a Mickey Mouse game that doesn't really involve any skill. It all just comes down to luck, and I think it just helps having the 30 cards in the Atlas helps a lot with that. Like keeping it more in the right, because let's face it, like 30 is still a lot. Like we're saying, like if you're only drawing 4 to 10, you're only talking about at most a third, and at least whatever, I don't know, 7th or whatever it is. So you're only seeing a small amount of that Atlas each game anyway, right? There's a huge amount of variance that can occur, and I think that's, in the end, that's sort of I'm sure it's what they're ultimately aiming for with this change, is that I've not heard it officially, but I think in just my understanding of what they're trying to do with the game is that they want the variance. They want games to play out differently. They want, they don't want you to build a deck that just exactly the same thing and wins it exactly the same way every single game with no variance. Like, the variance is good, but you want, I don't know, like good variance, so to speak, positive variance. Like, you want variable gameplay, but you don't want it to be random gameplay as such, right? Like, you want different things to happen and games to play out in different ways, but you want people to, be in control of their destiny, so to speak, and making meaningful decisions, and ultimately, in the end, You
also don't want that variance to just stop people from being able to play the game as well, I think, is an important factor.
Yeah, which I think is whatever, if you want to...
Because that always just leaves people with a sour taste in their mouth.
Yeah, and that's where you're bucketing up whatever you're broadly calling something like good variance and bad variance, and that would fall under the bad variance bracket or bucket. But that type of bad variance has way more chance of happening if the Atlas is 40 cards instead of 30 cards.
Yes.
Pretty much. So the Atlas is a very good number. I don't know if we need to talk about that anymore. Save from maybe Pathfinder, it finally can get enough help to, have a bit more...
Push up. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, like... Because at the moment, you sort of just have to build a dual element deck, right? That's approximately sort of half and half in the mana base, and
just hope.
Yeah. Whereas with one more set and the stay at the 30, maybe you can, go much more like potentially mono element, or more finely tune the mana base and not necessarily have to play sites that potentially harm you as well, just to get the thresholds and stuff like that. So I think, so help that in a bit, because Pathfinder is something that we keep trying to explore, and it just keeps falling on the death knell of lack of just lack consistency.
Yeah, it's just not quite there yet.
And in large part, that's just because of the Atlas size combined with the sites available in the game. So the fact that there will be more sites added and not a bigger
without
Atlas,
needing to add more.
So, right. The spell book at 60. I was very much expecting both to increase, so the fact that increased isn't surprising at all. I think with the nature of deck construction, it's fine. Like, I know...
Yeah, I think it's...
Like, we moved from 40 to 50 ourselves. We moved pretty gracefully, right? Like, it wasn't difficult for us when it moved across, and... I know some people really don't like it, and I think there are still like people playing online with 40-20 format, tournaments and stuff. But I don't know, 40-20 now with Arthurian Legends and other sets in the mix would just feel way too easy to make ridiculously powerful decks. like way too easy. But maybe that's what people, what they want. So
yeah, I mean, you can still make really powerful decks at 50-30 as is. So I think it's going to be fine because the card pool's growing massively. So only need to add an extra 10 is going to be pretty easy. But I think the big thing with it going to 60 is basically the unique system of the game, right? So it's going to be a lot harder to see certain cards each game, and that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. But yeah, I'm not sure.
It'll play more into how we definitely evolved, I think, in our deck construction when it went to 50-30, which is that you trying to build a deck that consistently wins, and you achieve that consistency through the deck being versatile, effectively. So, as in, you have multiple different ways to win, right?
Yeah, and
you're not, or to sort of frame that another way, you're not relying on drawing any specific card in order to be able to win, right? Or not only any specific combination, but not any specific card at all. So you sort of, it's a bit of a weird concept in a way, because I can't even really think how you apply that properly to like other card games too much, because normally how you're achieving the consistency is by doing the same thing every time, right? Not by potentially doing different things. So
yeah.
So examples of this is things like how we included Nimbus Djinn, right, in our Archimago deck. It's like an alternate win condition. So
yeah.
So you're not relying on having to win with some specific way, like with Creator Eyes or whatever, right? So I think I just don't have any issues with 60 in principle, pretty much.
No, I don't have any issues with it either. I think it's fine. I think it's probably going to be, unless they, and at some point, if they do like, format rotations, like a standard and sort of stuff like that, they would have needed to do something about the deck sizes anyway, right? So I like this change.
So alright, so now are we ready to delve into the big one?
I guess so.
10? Alright. What I will say is a couple of things before we get there. So 60-30-10 is a really good number for deck box sizes, because it's 100, and that's the same size as what's the popular format in Magic the Gathering these days? Commander or whatever it is.
Yeah,
they're 100, right? So at 100 cards, you'll be able to find deck boxes easily that fits them. But once you get bigger, finding deck boxes will be more difficult as well. So
I mean, it's already going to be difficult for you because you like the double sleeve, so you're just not going to fit anyway.
You can get Commander deck boxes that double sleeve. Already checked. Don't worry.
Okay.
Don't worry.
You're set.
I'm set. I'm all looked after. So, yeah. So you can.
Although one thing with 60-30-10 is they're normally pretty tight, so you can't have your tokens in there in those deck boxes now.
No. Nope.
So
some of them have a separate little compartment or whatever though for tokens and stuff and dice and whatever. They have like a dice compartment, and then you can fit the sorcery tokens in there. So, but anyways, a little bit, but I think it's just because one downside if they do ever go above 60-30-10 would be that everyone's not gonna be able to use a deck box anymore, which is not insignificant, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, you obviously they probably can find a deck box or somewhere or whatever, but there aren't really any standard deck box sizes that fit 110 cards. Is what I'm saying for other games. So it's okay, and I think now's the time to talk about the collection mechanic. Maybe we'll talk about the cards as we go through it because it helps paint the picture a bit. Do you agree with that?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll just start from the top. So we have Forsaken Crypt, an exceptional site that lurks within. It provides 1 air threshold. It's got 2 air threshold Genesis, and obviously, like all these other ones, it self counts towards it. So you just need one other. Well, I assume it self counts towards it because that's how it works for everything else. So you don't need one other air threshold. And then you may cast a ghoul from your collection to this side, and the ghoul was a previously revealed card, 3 power for 3 mana, 1 air threshold. So you would have to pay its cast, so you have to pay the 3 mana. It would be ridiculously good if it was summon, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to pay the 3 mana. Now, in a vacuum, this feels... I mean, I can already see that, it's going to make sense in some decks to want to do this. You got this nice little spot on the curve. There's definitely a bigger, wider conversation about these 10 slots and whether this is... Well, okay, so let's just imagine for a second that the collection didn't exist and that the ghoul was a token that cost 3, right?
I think it would be better in that situation.
Yeah, but it would be, but yeah. But it would be, not only would it be better, but it would be really good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be played in...
If this card with this token already existed, let's say it was part of a Throne Legends, this would see widespread play, wouldn't it?
I think so.
Like, it would be...
I'm just trying to think of what sites it would replace in, the meta air decks. And most of those sites are pretty good, right? Because it's competing with towers and lookout, things like that, right? So, I mean, maybe it's better than them. Certainly.
Well, there's plenty of sites that aren't tower or lookout, though. I mean, there's another 20 sites or so in the deck, right?
That a single air threshold.
Oh, if it's mono air, avatar air, there'll be plenty, right? I'm gonna pull up a list, but there must be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of what they are. I can't think of what they are.
The Updraft Ridge, Cloud City.
So it's probably not better than Cloud City. Updraft Ridge is probably better than. Watchtower is the other one, right? Which, they do two completely different things. So
well, they are. Yeah,
there's still a world where you play Watchtower.
Importantly, this just gets you to construct the deck. It isn't just the site, right? It gets you to construct the deck completely differently as well. Because you effectively... Well, not completely necessarily, but you basically getting something that you either fit on curve as your 3-drop or you fit it into a later turn, right? As a later site drop.
Yeah.
So, but you also know exactly what the card is. So, and it provides a threat. Like, if you're comparing this to something like Wizard's 10, because in a way it's sort of drawing your card, right?
That's sort of where I was thinking as well.
So if you're comparing it to Wizard's Den, in a deck that wants the air threshold, and is, a minion sort of base deck that's doing minion-y things instead of a control deck, it's pretty good.
I'm not saying that it's
where you care about the cards, right? So less good in Sorcerer, more good in Avatar of Air, sort of thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But all I'm really trying to say is this would be certainly playable, potentially really one of the better, really good, right? Potentially, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere between playable and really good. And so it's clearly good, but then you're saying it's actually worse because now you have to take up one of those slots.
Well, realistically, it's more than one, right? It's 3. Because if you're going to play 3 of them in your deck, you have to play 3 of these in your sideboards, because otherwise, if you're only playing one, past one, they don't do anything.
I think you could play 2. Go back to our conversation that you're only probably drawing 4 to 10 of your 30 sites. It's very unlikely you're going to draw all 3 of them. So you could play 3 Crypts with 2 Ghouls, for sure.
Yeah, potentially, I suppose.
But still 2 of the slots, right?
Yeah.
So,
and in a deck that doesn't utilize the rest of the sideboard, sure, you just play 3 and you don't care. But
yep.
I don't think that's going to be the case for the majority of decks with how good the next couple are.
Probably not, but yeah, still interesting though, right? Interesting.
I think you bump into that problem more with the next card. This one, because it's ordinary, right? And, you can play it in any element. So say you're in an air deck, you're already playing 3 of the Ghoul one, and you want to play 4 of this one, that's basically your whole, then you just can't play the Tudor ones, effectively.
Yeah, but that might not be, for certain decks.
It might be a trade-off that's worth taking, but I'm just saying.
I can see in certain decks that's pretty good, potentially, right? Now, we don't know all the rest of the information, or what other, especially for example, if you, because what you're sort of, not necessarily, but
because that could be a cycle, right? That the ghoul site, it could just be a cycle.
Oh yeah,
like we saw that. What was it? The ghoul, the demon version, and the water version, right?
Potentially.
There could be that site for all three of them.
Yep, potentially. But I would be gobsmacked. Well, not gobsmacked. I would be surprised if these are the only two sites in the entire game that are getting something out of your. It's possible.
Well, there's already another one in this post.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's potentially.
I would assume it's a cycle. I would be more surprised if it wasn't a cycle than if it is.
But there also might be other ones, right? There might be something, for example, that gets a minion that's like a unique site that gets a better minion that's higher up on the curve or something, right? As well.
Possibly, yeah.
So, like, I guess what I'm saying is, if through the lens that you, just because you want to play a few ghouls, all of a sudden you're potentially, like, you know, ruining your toolbox, so to speak. But maybe it isn't just for a few ghouls, right? Maybe it's actually for the other stuff, and the ghouls are just the things that are taking up the 9th and 10th slots. Do you know what I mean? Not...
Yeah.
The ghouls aren't the reason to want to do it, but the ghouls are just the filler, potentially, right?
Yeah.
Because there's other better stuff that is doing these type of effects. But hard to say, because we only see what we see. So, the Troubled Town is ordinary. It doesn't have any thresholds. You may cast a Townsfolk from your collection to this site.
And this guy does have a threshold, so this effectively has to be in a deck with Earth Threshold.
Yeah. Now, right? I'm assuming...
other Townsfolk, which we don't know about.
Well, I assume that there is, on the basis that this says Townsfolk, and the card is called something Townsfolk, and this one says Ghoul, and this one is not something Ghoul. So I'm assuming that this is the only Ghoul, and I'm assuming that this is not the only Townsfolk, and my assumption could be completely incorrect, basically. But it also feels a little bit weird to me that if it is the only one, that
it should have an Earth Threshold.
Yeah, like this site doesn't have an Earth Threshold, so I think there's...
I mean, it could also be that it doesn't have an Earth Threshold because otherwise it's just upgraded villages, right?
Yeah, but they're also stealing one of your slots as well in your sideboard.
Yep.
In your collection, sorry. So, but yeah, maybe that's a reason as well. Maybe, yep. So, but I think the tell for me is in the fact that this isn't called Townsfolk, and it says Townsfolk, that this is called...
I mean, I'm certainly leaning more towards what you're saying, but I'm just saying, you know, that's also an option that exists. Which, if you assume... I think in Constructed this doesn't matter too much, but I think in Limited it certainly does, because potentially Troubled Towns could be... you know, like you want to pick them up in the draft, knowing that whatever, you know. I mean, the other thing is, in draft, are these other Townsfolk in packs, and you have to draft both. The same with the Ghoul, things like that. Do you actually just have to draft both cards, or are they tokens that just are in box hoppers?
No,
don't know, right?
Well, I think. Okay, so my working assumption is that what you don't draft, like, I think in a draft, so my assumption is your collection is either going to be 10 cards that you choose out of what you drafted down in your deck, or just literally everything that you drafted that is in your
I
deck.
think it would be the things that you don't draft, but I mean, for these tokens, for these guys in particular...
Sorry, you said that you don't draft, but...
Yeah, that you do draft that you don't play is what I meant, sorry. I would assume that is your collection for Limited, but... Are these guys in packs? You know, is that cycle of 3-powered 3-drops? Are they in packs? If this is a cycle, are they in packs?
I'm going to go with yes. I think yes because of
that.
I think yes because of Limited.
Way worse. Right, all the collection cards, like the sites cards in particular, get way worse in Limited. If you know, because you might see them. You know, in packs 1 and 2, and you don't have a Ghoul yet.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, do I take it hoping to get one? And then all of a sudden you're in like a weird position of having to first pick a Ghoul over something like really strong.
Oh, yeah. So I think in this particular case, yeah, less good. I was talking about this particular case when we were talking about it. So I think if the townsfolk, if there's a whole bunch of different ones, especially if they're all ordinary, like, you would be sort of happy to pick this up in a draft just speculatively as the whatever, right? 10th pick or whatever, potentially.
Yeah, but then you're also on the flip side of, if you just have like a 1-power 2, like, if you just have this townsfolk, do you just want it in your deck instead? Is also the other consideration.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, interesting considerations though for limited. All of it is interesting. So I think it maybe this is playable and constructed somehow. Maybe there's some better townsfolk as well.
I mean, maybe there's you play like a 2-element deck if they're a cycle of each element, right? And you play four troubled towns, and you have like 2 of each of the you play like 2 earth ones, 2 fire ones, and then you have the other townsfolk just in your deck, right? Like as a 1-drop 2-power minion sort of thing, potentially. Like some combination.
But there might also just be townsfolk that are just like, townsfolk army or something, right? That costs like Midland army, but it's just called a townsfolk, let's say, for argument's sake, and you could just have that in your collection, put this down and pay 8 mana, right? Like potentially there's some like townsfolk that are not
size,
this exact stat line, that just like, because maybe there are ones that are exactly the same, the different elements. Maybe there's other earth ones that are bigger and more expensive and better.
Yeah.
So potentially this is really good because you have like it's like a toolbox of townsfolk, maybe, right? Maybe.
Yep. Could be a thing. That'd be pretty interesting under that, for sure. I think we do these 2 last. And we hop down, because like the spell one is a lot like the others.
Release the Hounds. So it's an elite magic, 7 mana, 2 fire thresholds. Summon 2 Hellhounds from your collection to your avatar's location. They gain charge. The Hellhounds with a fire one that was cost 3, 1 threshold, 3 power, right? So you're getting 2 3-powered minions that are beasts, I believe. Were they beasts or were they demons? Maybe they were evil.
Demons, I want to say.
Demons, yeah. So they were demons. Yeah, they were all evil, I'm pretty sure, when we looked. They must have been demons. So
yeah, it was the evil package, right?
Yeah. So basically, obviously, you may have synergies with stuff, but ignoring those synergies because we don't know what they might be for a second. It's 7 mana for 2 3-powered charge minions.
So even before we get into just the power level of this card in particular, if that Ghoul Sight is a cycle and you can get demons off of it, all of a sudden you potentially can't even play that card if it is a part of a cycle because you wanted to play this instead. And this is elite, and if you played 2 of them, you'd want 4 in your sideboard, and then all of a sudden you wouldn't want to play the sights and potentially make this card do nothing.
Potentially, yeah.
Because I'm assuming when these guys die, they don't go back into your sideboard. I assume they go into your graveyard.
I assume so, yep. Cemetery, yep. We keep calling it graveyard, but yep. I noticed that one. We'll get better one day. Yeah, but maybe it isn't a cycle as well.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, but with that out of the way, I think the card.
It would be. My question is that how does that even fall? Like ignoring all of this peripheral stuff, just 7 mana for 2 3-powered charge minion tokens. Let's say, how would that even?
I think if it wasn't summoned to your avatar's location, I think I would sort of like it and think it's reasonably solid. But since they're on your avatar, there's a good chance if you're going to 7, you're probably a deck that wants to just, tap, draw, tap, play, or even just draw size naturally and play them, right? So you're probably not moving around too much. And then if they're just summoning to your backline, that's pretty bad. And if you have to be forced to step up and play it, it loses a bit of value. Still probably alright, but it definitely loses some value. And you potentially, it's going to be very hard to get your avatar into a spot to be able to just play this and attack for 6, like straight away, sort of thing, because they might have a minion in the way or whatever. So not being able to just dump them wherever you feel like is going to be, I think, quite restrictive. But with that said,
especially defensively, right? Potentially.
Yeah. And I think if it didn't cut into your sideboard, it would probably have a home in like Archimago, right? But I think they're probably going to want to get a lot more value out of having a big toolbox with the other cards coming up.
Yeah.
Potentially cards that haven't been released yet.
Yeah.
Overall, I think probably not going to see almost any play. And again, if it's like you have to draft both the Hellhounds in Limited, because I could see it being like an absolute bomb in Limited, right? But if you have to actually draft both the Hellhounds as well, this card potentially is unplayable because you only got 0 or 1. On top of the fact that other cards are probably going to summon Hellhounds.
Yeah, and you got to choose. You got to draft those Hellhounds instead of other cards.
Exactly, right? So if you want to make this card even playable, you have to draft the card and 2 Hellhounds. So there's 3 of your picks to have one card that is like pretty
even
solid.
If you pull that off,
it's not like it's game like not like going to end the game.
It's a very real possibility that your deck may just be better to not play Release the Hounds and just put the Hellhounds in your deck instead as well.
Absolutely,
depending on what else you drafted, right? So, that's very interesting. I mean, I assume you're going to have to draft these things to play them in Limited, but that's a pretty big, as we've discussed even with these cards, right? It's a pretty big thing already.
Yeah, I think I think if you have to draft both of them, unless there's one in every pack, they're going to be almost unplayable in draft. Most of these cards,
and maybe there is, yep. Maybe they're like super ordinaries or something, like appear way more frequently than other ordinaries as well.
Yeah, maybe there's just a rule that you can just play them like tokens in Limited. Who knows? Because if you can play them like tokens in Limited, I think they're probably all fairly strong that we've seen.
Maybe it's like, I guess possibly as well, they're just like, the vanilla sites or whatever, there's just like a pool of ghouls and stuff that you can just...
Yeah, it's like when you get your Spellslingers, your Spellslinger box draft kit, they've got them in there for Gothic, potentially.
Yeah. Yep. But, maybe this set just wasn't designed for limited play, and it's just bad luck for all this stuff.
I mean, that seems like a massive oversight, though, if they did that after making a set that was completely based around limited. So they know they want to get people drafting it as a game in general. To just have the whole next set have like however many cards this cycle is part of, it could be all the cards we've seen them all already, or it could be, who knows, quarter of the set, like that. If a quarter, all of a sudden, like, some amount of the set is literally undraftable, that's going to feel real bad. On top of the fact that there's generally cards that aren't worth drafting because the power level of them is so low.
Yeah. Well, it'll be very interesting because
hopefully they have
there's at least 3 different outcomes for this, right? That we've discussed just now, and maybe there's some others we haven't even thought of. But those being basically bad luck. This card's just trash because you're never going to get the 2 Hellhounds probably. So
it comes up even more in Sealed, right? Because you draft, you make the decision to take them, but in Sealed, you literally just might not open them, and maybe you open all the cards that are good with them, and you're like, well, I guess I just lose this Sealed because this happened. That's a massive feels bad moment.
So there's a variant where they are just ordinaries, and you have to actually get them. And there's a version where they're super ordinaries, or they just appear in every pack. One appears in every pack or something, so they're just pretty easy to get hold of in draft. And then there's a version where they're just part of the... you can just add as many as you want outside, like they're just with the sites or whatever to add afterwards. Maybe there's some other stuff, some other ways that it could work as well. It'd be very interesting, though. It'll change the draft experience massively depending on how...
Yeah, and if that second situation comes up where they're just in all the packs, all of a sudden you're only opening like 5 or 6 different cards in every pack. Because if you're opening there's a cycle of the hounds, and maybe the evil units, and maybe there's an earth version of it as well that we don't know about yet. So maybe that's 3 or 4, and then if the townfolk is a cycle of each element, that's like potentially 8 different cards. There might be more cards that we don't know about.
Yeah.
That's there's your whole common spot.
No, to be clear, my assumption would just be that that one of the ordinary slots is reserved for a specific list of cards, say those 10 cards that you just...
Oh, sort of like Slights in beta.
Yeah. Not that 10 of the cards in the pack would be those 10 every pack, but just there would be certain ordinaries that just appear way more frequently than other ordinaries, basically.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I.e. the ones that you need for all of these. Effectively the token ordinary. The ones that are being like pseudo-tokens. The ones that are like intended to be part of your collection, basically.
Yeah. Which there isn't that card in Arthurian Legends, right? That don't have that slot?
I don't think so.
No, that's not a slot that exists in AL like it did in beta. Beta it was Sights, AL it was nothing.
No, but there is a slot that has you sort of have the certain elites that appear more often than other elites, right? As such, the fake uniques or whatever.
Yeah, but that's
it's obviously completely different, but in principle, it's similar conceptually that you would just have an ordinary that appears more frequently than other ordinaries, and nobody's going to care about the value of any of these cards, so you could do it. The ordinary cards, I mean. So,
yeah, that's possible.
But even all that aside, like obviously it's probably alright in limited if it's one of these versions of this that makes it alright.
Yeah, I do think as far as like
it feels pretty bad in constructed, doesn't it? This just feels pretty bad. Take up 2 of the spots in.
Oh yeah,
and like you're saying, like having to play it at your location, it feels.
I think if it wasn't at your location, there's it's a possibility at the very top of your curve in like a pretty, burny, chargy sort of deck. It's probably a pretty solid card. But, you wouldn't play it in Sorcerer because you never go on a 7, realistically. Pretty rarely you'd want to go to 7. And they're generally the most avatar used for like the real aggressive burn decks where this would really fit. So that's a bit awkward. I don't see this almost ever seeing any play. Yeah. And yeah, like I was saying, Archimago would be pretty happy to play it if it wasn't for the fact that it takes up 4 of your tutor slots.
Yeah, and even then it's probably...
And that's only if you play one of them.
That it's in your location as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you probably got ways to get around that as Archimage, right? You're more than happy to blink up or something like that.
Probably so. I mean, it's competing with us.
And there's also be way better options.
Well, even Guards is arguably better, right? Cost less.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, over a couple of turns, though, 6 power of charge over, 2 turns is going to add up pretty quick versus what Guards does.
Yeah, like you said, though, I think at some point I do not see this redefining the entire meta, but let's see.
No. If it sees play, I would be more surprised than if it didn't.
How do you even say this one? Ersatz? Plats?
Probably something like
site of unsettling pillars and slats. You may play an exceptional site from your collection here, banishing this site. This is really interesting, I think.
I like this one a lot.
The amount of
I'll let you go.
I was just going to say, quick point. I think not right now, hopefully, but over the course of the next 1.5 years, this card all by itself is going to steal at least 100 hours of our lives away from us.
Yeah. I can see that for sure.
Deck construction,
I mean, every deck we ever make, we're going to have to be like, all right, let's go down the rabbit hole. Do we do it? But
yeah, like literally, right? Every deck ever. Like, it obviously doesn't fit into every deck ever, probably, but the conversation for us is going to have to happen for every deck ever.
Yes. And I think, like, the big, there's also... Because it's an, you play 2 of it because it's an elite site, and the fact that it can get an exceptional site, it potentially gives you access to 4 copies, well, 4 chances to get one particular exceptional site each game. So it increases the odds of that. That's like another way of playing it as well. And yeah, the implication, like, I mean, the possibility that there's this is a cycle, right? Like maybe there's a unique that gets an elite or an exceptional that gets an ordinary. Could you imagine how much time would go into deck construction for every single site if there was like one for each rarity? Like, oof. And I would have a lot of fun with it. I think that would be very good. But
yeah, you're going to have to increase that 100 hours to something more like 500 or 600 hours, I reckon, if that's the case. It would be like exponentially increased because you would have all the conversations about them like in conjunction with each other in different combinations as well, right? It would be.
I think we would probably end up having like a Google Doc that like referenced each different possible combination of things you could do in each different element, and we'd have to like, keep referring back to it every time we build a mana base, and it'd be pretty fun to have, you know. But even just as it is, as elite getting an exceptional, is going to, you know, as you said, take away a lot of our time, but definitely expand the deck construction by quite a bit. And then every time a set comes out and more sites come out, the card has to be reevaluated every single time as well for every single deck.
Yep. Yeah, really. Yep, really cool, I guess, from that. Like,
yeah, sure.
And the only
especially with the way sites are like, you know, it's so hard to draw like a good amount of sites versus spells, right? Where, you know, you got like Grandmasters and all that sort of stuff. So it's like having more access to particular sites is pretty awesome as well. On top of the fact that there's quite a few like fringe sites that, you know, you're like, oh, I sort of wouldn't mind playing it, but, you know, you don't really want to have it in there for the games where it's not good. Whereas this one, you know, really fits that bill very well.
I mean, if it wasn't for what we're about to move on to, it'd basically just be an auto-include in every deck you ever build, right? But if you...
Yeah, I think it might still be anyway, even under this. So it would depend on how many more cards come out like this, because I could definitely see us sacrificing 3 potential spell slots for the next couple of cards to play this in every single deck. But if the next card, you know, if there's like a whole bunch of different cards that, you know, interact with the collection, which assumingly there probably will be at least a few more that aren't revealed yet, at some point you're going to have to be like, all right, which ones don't we play?
Yeah.
But I think this one is probably on the higher list of things to play, especially in the decks we build.
Yeah. Yeah, and it isn't just obviously you referenced that obviously now you can, in a way, have 4 of an exceptional site instead of 3, but that's not the only way to utilize this, right? Like, it could be like a toolbox. It could be mana fixing, but also with effects that matter, right? Like, so for example, you could have a tower. You could have, you could have a 4-element deck, and you could have one. Oh, not tower, not tower. What's the beacon? Beacon? That's exceptional.
Yeah,
right?
I figured about beacon. Yeah.
Yeah. So you could have beacon, and you could have like name whatever, right? But you could
effectively like beacon, floodplain, potentially like gnome hollows, like basically single element thresholds to fix your mana as well as having like a nice effect.
Yeah. So it's like a toolbox of potential threshold fixing combined with a toolbox of effects that are also potentially helping you win like a floodplain can just win you the game sometimes, right? As can
absolutely
whatever, potentially a gnome hollows could, like, but yeah, so there's that, and then obviously, or maybe it's just 3 elements, or even maybe it's just 2 elements, and so it can be this. It isn't just to potentially get 4 copies of a certain exceptional, right? Like, it could also be
absolutely
like a toolbox type of thing.
I mean, prior to the rules change, a pretty good option would have been Free City.
Yep.
Not anymore.
But yeah, I really like the idea of it being like, because obviously later in the game, there's a good chance you don't need the thresholds, and at that point you can just chase whatever effect you need the most as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, ready to move on to the big one? The big ones?
Yeah. Yep.
The big bad boys. Right.
Yeah.
Start with the toolbox.
I mean, they're basically the same card with just different restrictions, right? So
yeah. Okay. So
they're fairly similar.
The big difference is the tap, obviously, right?
Well, the big difference is how many you can play and what you can get, I think. But the tap is definitely an issue.
So there's one immediate question which you can start with, which to me is an immediate question, which is there a unique one in the cycle that gets an elite as well? But we don't know the answer, and we don't know. And probably mechanically, at least how this looks, if it did exist, it would presumably
be even more restrictive.
Be more awkward to use. Yeah. So, but let's just ignore that, because who knows, right? And just focus on the two that we do know. So, toolbox. We'll start with the toolbox. So, it's exceptional. You sacrifice it. Bearer may cast an ordinary spell from your collection. Now, I've thought about this a lot, because I'm pretty sure, but without being certain, that the bearer can cast the spell irrespective of whether they have spellcaster or not. Just looking at other cards and consistency and wording.
That was my thought as well. Like when I first read that, I'm like, I definitely thought, can this make things that don't have spellcaster cast? And I would think yes, through like, you know, if you think of like fire breathing and burning hands having the alternate cast from things that don't have spellcaster, I think it would work in the same way.
Yeah,
but obviously,
the wording's slightly different. Sure. There's no direct comparison. I'm like 90% certain, not 99 or 100. Like, I would, you know, there's plenty of things in this game when you read the card, how you think it works is not how it actually works, pretty much. So
yeah.
So I guess we'll because the thing is, these cards are very different in their overall playability and power level, depending on the answer to this, right? Like,
well, Silver Bullet, like, if you couldn't cast, like, so basically they do similar things, like basically the same thing, right? But Silver Bullet says this unit may cast, and the other one says bearer may cast, like,
yeah,
because that's okay, even more. But obviously that one says this unit may cast it because the thing goes away and it's not holding it anymore. So
yeah, exactly. So I assume they're the same.
Yeah, but they both do it, right? Because the other one sacrifices it as well. So why do they both do the same thing except are worded differently? That's awkward. So the way Toolbox is worded,
why are they okay? So I mean, I think the answer to your first question is something to do with the mechanics of the card, because if you tap and you sacrifice it, at that point, yeah, I don't know. Are you
Toolbox? You have to sacrifice as well, though.
Yeah,
you just don't have to tap it. Why are they worded differently? That's very awkward that I hadn't really noticed until now, just rereading them.
Okay, so if you assume for a second that the reason is because the tap effect, right? So here it'll be like tap, sacrifice, dash.
Yeah.
Bearer may cast. So that's the question. And the answer might be... There's a problem with that wording for some reason. Don't know. I honestly don't know. Let's just not get too hung up on it.
Maybe if someone knows, and they can post it in the comments and totally school us.
Because the question's something, I guess if you know the answer to why Silver Bullet doesn't just say tap, sacrifice, arrow, bearer may cast an... Just literally the same wording, but just says tap, dash, sacrifice, and exceptional here instead of ordinary. Why doesn't it just say that? Maybe there's some reason. Let's assume that mechanically the only difference between these is having to tap.
Yes, I think it'll make our discussion a lot easier, for sure.
I think also that obviously makes it... It's a cost, right? So you have to not have summoning sickness to do it. But the big question ultimately is, it says bearer may cast an ordinary spell, and I assume that just means they can cast an ordinary spell. But they may cast an ordinary spell from your collection if they have spellcaster, right? Like, they can't cast it because they don't have spellcaster. If they don't have spellcaster. It's not necessary. It's not the same wording as other cards. We can pull them up.
Yeah.
But the other cards have similar, but not the same wording. So I interpret this that they can. But if the
But what's the difference between the bearer and this unit? Like, yeah, I'm not sure.
So, for example,
I'm assuming this unit means the bearer of this unit. Maybe it's like bearer has, you tap, you sacrifice a bullet, and you can like choose a unit that this unit may cast. Like maybe it doesn't have to be the bearer that gets it.
I think it has to be the bearer because
I would have. That's how I would have thought it would work. But now I'm trying to work out what the difference between these two bloody cards are.
I think it's just the tap and the cost. But honestly, the bit that I'm not 100% sure on is just whether the bearer can cast the spell, whether they need spellcaster or other conditions. So, for example, if the bearer was immortal, then they could cast Burning Hands from your collection, right?
Yeah, okay.
So whether they still have to basically be able to cast the spell, or whether this enables them to cast a spell, or if this just grants them the ability to be able to cast it from your collection if they're able to cast it. Does that make sense? It's
yes.
So, because the wording is a bit like it's not. So, for example, like bearer can cast an ordinary spell from your collection. I don't know if that's at that point it's like makes it clear that they can, right? But I think let's just assume that they can.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we go through. So for the rest of the thing, we'll say they can, but there's one. The big difference, if they can't, is Silver Bullet immediately gets much, much worse than Toolbox. Because then you have to tap... You'd basically, majority of the time, you'd be tapping your avatar to use it. So that's, an additional cost, effectively.
Yeah. And obviously there's all sorts of spells and stuff that have, like, nearby and proximity and whatever, right? Like, or shooting projectiles or whatever. We're having... Like, it's massively different for both. But, like you said, the biggest thing of all is... Tapping is just way worse if you have to tap your avatar.
Yeah, because you just can't, you can't move your avatar. Or
where Silver Bullet would really have the premium, right? Is where not only are you not tapping your avatar, but you're tapping something you just don't even care about, like a frog, right, or a foot soldier or something.
Yeah.
Let's assume that they can. These cards are way worse if they can't, though. Still probably playable. But
I think I probably wouldn't play Silver Bullet, but I would still play Toolbox. Like, I actually like Toolbox a lot more than Silver Bullet, just in general. Just mostly for that tap restriction. But I haven't exactly gone through every single card, and maybe the cards you get at Exceptional are just so much more impactful as Silver Bullets. Might make it outweigh Toolbox, and the tap is, it's worth giving up that ability, having that extra restriction. But in general, I like Toolbox a fair bit more.
One of the things I like about this the most, and maybe we can look at the cards quickly to really illustrate this point, but there is quite a significant pool of cards in Sorcery, and this is even before Gothic, just from Arthurian Legends and Beta, that are basically unplayable in your deck, but could be playable in the collection, in the 10-card collection.
Absolutely. The main ones that immediately jump to mind is Unravel, Mortality, all those
And I love the idea that all of those cards are now relevant. I love the idea that before you could sort of ignore whatever it was, a third of the cards in the game, or whatever it is, 25%, I don't know. There was a certain percentage of cards you just could... I mean, let's just... We won't be too hyper. Let's just give some actual examples.
So you can remove sight.
You can remove sight.
Remove sight. So you just click on menu now.
So an example is something like Blizzard was basically never played. Boyle sort of never played. These have never played in Constructed, really, but they could be now.
Yeah, they could just be fixing from a toolbox in like a 4-element deck. Charged now all of a sudden potentially has legs.
Exorcism could now be playable, especially with Gothic, the Demon and Undead, right? Extinguish becomes way more playable.
Big one.
Which one, sorry?
Just said Extinguish as well at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
Potentially like the Blaze, how the Blaze there is.
Interestingly,
maybe
even a Highway Clansman could just, for the late game, right? If there's no better Ordinary to slam down as a late game thing, if it dragged.
Helpful Hob even, for those situations where it's actually good, like, the ramp or whatever and things like that, so.
I don't know, maybe even if there's some really powerful spellcasters coming into the next set, maybe Mage Slayer, right?
Yeah, potentially. Miracle Workers is a pretty immediate target as well for
Mortality.
heavy minion deck.
For sure, Mortality, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Rain of Arrows, potentially. Even.
Rescue's another one of those sort of cards as well, where it's good to have the option to be able to have it, but it's really awkward when it's in your deck.
Scarecrow,
Scent Hounds. Both are very good.
Possibly Sleep, depending on possibly
what style of deck you're playing. Yeah, Tactical Move screams that it wants to be in the sideboard for that sort of deck as well.
Possibly even Swindler Troop, right? If you had some specific minion in mind in your deck that you want to give stealth.
Yep.
Unravel. For sure. Yep. Unravel. Maybe even Teleport could be an option, right?
Teleport's a pretty good target in that sort of setup.
In some even a Violent. I know Violent is perfectly playable without it, but it could, it potentially is really good to be part of that toolbox as well.
Yeah, it'd certainly be even in a deck where you were playing 4, if you're playing all of a sudden you're playing the 4 toolboxes as well, you're like, oh, maybe
maybe some of these walls are now playable in that, coming out of that board as well. So, but there's a pretty big pool of cards here that we've just said that we would never put in a deck. We'd never put an Exorcism or something in the deck, right?
No,
or an Unravel or whatever. But they could totally be in this. I love the idea that
absolutely
that you now have all these cards that were irrelevant for all this time and now they're relevant potentially. And the thing is, even if something isn't relevant, like a lot of those cards we just said, they could totally just become relevant, right? The next set after Gothic.
Yep.
And
these cards get better every time a set comes out too.
Yeah. So I like the idea that effectively it's the existence of this mechanic. It's not literal, but to some large degree, it kind of means that every card is potentially always playable in the game at some point in the future, and that you sort of have to reevaluate literally everything, every set sort of thing.
Yeah,
maybe
possibly.
That's not fun. Maybe that's not quite 100% true, but it's probably it applies to 90+% of the card pool, right? That you kind of have to reevaluate it every time a set's released. And I don't know. I just like the idea that you've just massively expanded the playable card pool effectively with this change. I really like that as a concept.
Yeah, I like it.
I think for us personally, kind of leaning towards we're more toolboxy type players, I would say, than ghoul type players, let's say. Well, we're more likely to be doing the toolbox type stuff but we're more likely just because I think this Townsfolk and ghouls and whatever make more sense for more aggressive, aggro to mid-range type decks, whereas the toolbox and stuff is probably better for more mid-range to control type, the second half of the spectrum, from sort of mid-range.
Yeah, next to one answers to things. It's
and that's normally where we. Our personal play style sort of typically sits more in that. We do build mid-range, proper mid-rangey decks sometimes, but we don't really ever build pure aggro decks, do we? So
yeah, not full all in, but we've built quite a good amount of sorcerer aggro and flame cooler and stuff to test into at worst, just to, so we definitely do build them, but they're generally not the ones we end up playing in an actual tournament.
The toolbox feels very, very, very good, and I can see us having conversations for, like,
I would be very surprised if every deck we made didn't have 3 toolboxes in it.
Yeah,
made for us to play, I should say.
Yeah, I think it's possible that you may end up, for specific decks, you may end up down the silver bullet route, just maybe because there's some specific exceptional cards that are really important for the deck.
Oh, I mean, that you can definitely play both, though, in a deck,
yeah.
Right? Because, with the silver bullet in particular, you probably don't need, like, a massive amount of cards for it to actually be worth playing. Like, maybe you only need, 3 options, and all of a sudden you're willing to play both. You're willing to play 2 of them. For me in particular, that was why I think toolbox, like we lean toolbox more than silver bullet, is literally just the tap thing.
Yep. Yeah.
But maybe there's exceptionals that are so good that you're just like, no, it's worth tapping for.
Yep. Yeah, and again, the specifics of whether it has to be the avatar or it can be a minion is huge here, because if it can be a minion, this is way more playable, the silver bullet, than if it has to be your avatar. It's just or a minion with spellcaster, let's say, then it's a lot worse. A lot worse. Whereas the toolbox is just worse, but not a lot worse, basically, right?
Yep. Yeah, because at least toolbox you can just jam it on your avatar and be like, sure,
I think the real downside of it, if it is, obviously the power level is impactful quite a bit, but to me the biggest shame of these cards, if they had to have spellcaster, and it sort of means that it has to some degree be your avatar, right, for most of the time, is that the cards are narrower, effectively, and because of that, the cards that could be useful for the toolbox are, that card pool is also narrower, and then you're like offsetting a chunk of the previous point that I just got really excited about, that there's all these cards that are never playable and they're all now potentially playable, and now you're saying, except for all of these ones, they're still not playable, right?
Yeah.
Like you're saying, except for this thing that has to be, it only impacts stuff that's one step away or whatever, right? It's like, that's no good, because, like, so I think for me that'd be the biggest shame. But yeah, if that's the case, but I don't know. It's just, I feel like if the intent here was that they could only cast it if they had spellcaster, then this wording is horrible in regards to confusion.
Yes,
like I feel like they could have done a lot better job with the wording. So
I mean, the wording is clearly confusing just between the 2 cards.
Yeah,
like effectively, I think they're trying to do the same thing.
I think so too.
They both have different wording. Yeah, I don't know. That's awkward. At best, it's awkward.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody knows why.
Like, if they're disabled, they can't. Can they? If a unit is disabled, can it sacrifice the artifact? Because then it would be different. Because it says bearer has tap, but then the bearer would not have it.
If it's disabled, I don't think it can cast, right?
Yeah, no, it can't. Yeah, I'm really not sure.
And I don't even know if it can tap.
Clutching at straws here, what the difference is.
Well, no, it wouldn't be able to use it because the bearer has that, and so that would add it to its text box.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Assume. So the difference would be that if you're disabled, you can't use the silver bullet, but you can still use the toolbox. But I think you can't use the toolbox either if you're disabled.
Yes,
because they can't cast a spell if they're disabled. So
yeah,
I think they can't cast a spell if they're disabled.
Well, they lose spellcaster, right? If they're disabled.
Yeah, but they don't have spellcaster. This is saying they can cast it, so maybe that's the difference. Maybe with the toolbox,
maybe that's just in the rulebook so that it says a disabled unit can't.
We'll leave this one for the comments and see if somebody knows the answer. I think because we could be talking about this for hours and we're never going to reach a conclusion. I don't think we're just going to have potentially a slightly better version of the speculation. But my working assumption here is that No idea why there's a difference in wording. Let us know if you know. And our assumption is that they can cast the spell even if they don't have spellcaster.
Yeah, so part of the keyword disable is can't cast spells.
Yeah, okay. So that's not the difference. So yeah, but these feel very, just very playable, right? Like I know you're saying you'd rather play Toolbox than Silver Bullet. Let's assume for a second the Toolbox we didn't see it, right? All that was revealed was Silver Bullet. You'd be thinking Silver Bullet is playable.
Oh yeah, they're both good. So basically, the reason why Silver Bullet it probably goes down, in my opinion, in general, is because it's taking up spots from Toolbox effectively. So, but yeah, there's obviously still a possibility to play both. But if push came to shove, I would play Toolbox over Silver Bullet. But if Toolbox didn't exist, I'd be more than I would just be playing Silver Bullet. I think, even with the restriction of having to tap. And in a scenario where you need spellcasters to do it, all of a sudden Apprentice Wizard probably starts coming back into the meta. Grandmaster Wizard probably sees more play in more decks, where it was like, on the borderline of getting played or not. And yeah, there's probably other spellcasters as well that would start popping up more and more.
But it seems very deliberate that there are artifacts to be able to, for every deck to get access, and the cost point is very, I don't know, it feels very, like, I don't know if cheap is the word, but it's not oppressive. Like, it's not...
I think that'd be an issue if they cost more, right? Because as they are, most of the time you probably want to cast them on 2 and then activate them like on the following turn at some point. But at 2, you can still sort of play it and go get something in the same turn as like a surprise, or like protecting the Toolbox /Bullet, things like that. So I think if they cost more, then all of a sudden they start moving into the can't really be played territory.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the intent here is that they will be played. That's the thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I think there's a clear intention.
Well, I mean, if their whole solution to everybody asking for a sideboard and then refusing to do it is this needs to be a playable thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think
so if they missed the mark here, there would have been so many tears.
Yeah, but I don't think, like I said, I think the cost is fine. Is all I was really like, because I think at 1 it would be way too good as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think 2 is a happy medium. Now, on the spellcaster front, I just had a quick little look at spellcasters. I'm assuming River of Flame can't use these because it can't bear them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though you could literally play it on top of a River of Flame and just have it sitting there.
Yeah, but it can't.
But still not be able to use it?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's correct. Okay, so we discussed the cards. I think it's just... And I don't know if it's not... There's a couple of other things I just want to discuss. So one is, which would, skirting around the edges a bit, I think is, why don't we derail from this for a second and just talk about because I think maybe it's obvious from the way we're speaking, but I think we both really, or at least the prospect of this change, maybe the final implementation we may end up not so happy about, but with what we've seen, I think we're both really, like, combination of happy and excited about it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So I think we can come back, and I think a good conclusion for this is just to elaborate on that a bit more, right? Like, why we're really...
I think one thing I should mention as well is I personally don't like the implementation of, like, the minion side of it, where it's just like, you're making the ghoul, all that sort of stuff. It really feels like those sort of things should still just be tokens, like, and not eating up like a massive part of your sideboard effectively. And if down the line, like, I think it's mostly because they're just generic dudes who clearly could just be represented by a token and it would be completely fine. If they had like abilities and things like that, I think it would be, I wouldn't bump into it at all, because then they would be more like an actual basically like part of your toolbox, part of your sideboard with, some flexibility. But they're all like, they don't have any, like if you scroll up to the Ghoul one in particular, right? So this one, it's literally only ever makes this thing. And it's just a 3-power undead minion. Could easily just be like, a foot soldier, but, that size and undead. There's no flexibility in the card. So why does it need to eat up a portion of your sideboard slot if they're going to go down the route of we're not going to have sideboards in the game outside of this exact 10 cards, and now all of a sudden, if you want to play a deck that runs both, you just limit your options? I don't know, I definitely bump into that quite a bit.
Sure. But maybe ultimately that's intentional as well. So, because maybe the answer to that is something like they feel that this is too powerful to do it without that sacrifice, basically. Now, you could disagree, but I feel like this is a pretty powerful effect, and there may be more powerful ones than this as well. So, like, there's a trade-off at the end of the day, and you're saying you would rather not make the trade-off, but
yeah,
fair enough that you would rather not have to make a trade-off, but the fact that a trade-off
but if it's going to be this sort of power level, like, sure, if it's more powerful, that makes sense, but when it's something like this, and especially like the townsfolk one, stuff like that,
but you have no idea what other coming through. There's a card that says,
with the exact
if you have 5 townsfolk in play, you win the game, or something crazy like that, right? Like, you just don't.
But with this exact example and the amount of information that we have,
yeah,
that is not worth a trade-off of a toolbox. As well as hurting your mana base, because yet now all of a sudden you're playing a threshold site.
Yeah, if the townsfolk. I don't know. I do feel like this is pretty good. Like, I know. This is. I know, for example, if the same thing existed for Earth, which I don't know if it does, but let's say for argument's sakes that this was just Earth, right? Both of these.
I'm not saying it's not worth playing.
This would be totally play. Well, not only would it be worth playing, but it would be worth playing potentially. Instead of having as big a toolbox in certain decks, immediately something that like Avatar of Earth comes to mind. Like, it would love something like this.
Yeah, that was my first thought of where a home for it as well.
So, it's not for every deck, but certainly some decks would love it, basically. So, potentially Flamecooler would have liked a fire one like this as well if it existed, but Flamecooler GG. Flamecooler will be the biggest loser of everything in this. All that Archimago hate is going to spill over into making Flamecooler dead, I'm pretty sure.
Yep. But if you just look at the last card, right, the 7-cost Hellhound one, this card, if it didn't eat up your sideboard slot, would have a potential of being played. But as it is, it's got no chance in hell, right?
Well, maybe that's
even if it was just competing with.
They are the Hellhounds, so.
Even if it was just competing with the Ghoul slot, the site is a million times better than this card, right?
Yeah. Well,
the Ghoul site.
Maybe these cards are for the kitchen table where you get as many as you want. So.
Sure.
Maybe they're not for Crossroads tournaments, so I don't know. It's hard to. I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, like, not everything has to be like A tier or higher. Like, some stuff can just be, I
don't know. I just sort of bump up against like just having generic stuff that just doesn't need to be the way it is, as it is with what they've shown, basically. Like, they feel like they should just be tokens to me, but
yeah,
sure.
Fair enough.
It is what it is.
Yep. Right. So we definitely felt like we were going more into what I wanted to do before we went down there was just to derail for a second and come back to concluding all of it, like doing the wrap up thoughts. But I just wanted to derail to just this is ultimately what they've done. I don't think maybe somebody saw it coming, but I think on the most part nobody saw this coming, and I think it's just happy with the direction, I think, on the whole, but I think it was just worth having a quick conversation about how this compares to what the alternatives could have been to try to do something like this, because I know, I play at online league and I speak to people quite often after the games, and there is some recurring conversations that you have. And one of them is along the lines of around people want sideboards, that they want it to be best of 3, that and the main argument against that, I think, is just time, basically, right?
Yeah.
Best of 3 takes longer than best of 1, and quite often you don't even finish best of 1 in a round. So that's the main argument, and then the main counter argument to that is something like, well, people can just play quicker, but unfortunately in the real world that's not quite how it works, and especially if you're talking about a big tournament that has a big prize pool, and if it was best of 3, it's way too easy in Sorcery to stall, basically, right?
Yeah.
You say, well, just make it so you're not allowed to stall. No, sorry. That's when I say stall, I don't mean them stalling in a way that people are going to know that they're stalling or say that they're stalling. It'd be way too easy to stall in such a way where you get away with it effectively, where it's not obvious that you're stalling. And the reason for that is just because there's just way too many decision points in Sorcery. Like literally every turn, right? Like you don't draw a card at the start of your turn. You have to choose what deck you're going to draw for, right? So you just think on that for 20 seconds at the start of each turn, and then you and ah for 20 or 30 seconds about if you're going to tap to play a side or draw a side. And when you tap, you go, okay, I'm going to play a side, and you're holding it in your hand, and then you're like, I wonder where I'll play it. And right, and you extrapolate this out over a whole turn, especially if there's a bunch of minions on the board and all these different ways that you could attack and or defend or whatever the case is. Like, it'd be way too easy for whoever wins the first game to win the round, basically, right? To just play super slow for the second game to ensure that it doesn't finish, and whoever wins the first game just wins around 1-0 every time, pretty much. So through that lens, there is literally no difference between best of 1 and best of 3, because if it's best of 3 and whoever wins the first game is going to win by default because it's the only game that's finished, then there's just no difference, right? So best of 3 only really would help if you could basically do it somewhere between untimed, or the timing is just so long that it's that this phenomenon I'm describing to easily just basically stall.
Yeah, rounds would need to be like 2 hours long.
Yeah. I mean, this, and by the way, the stalling starts before any of that, right? Like, when I'm saying all of that, like, the stalling begins in the shuffling, right? And the sideboarding.
Yeah.
So, because it's literally the game 2 when you're saying you want to do it for sideboard. So you can stall for a bunch of time to do your sideboard changes. Then you have to shuffle everything properly because you did sideboarding changes. Then you have to shuffle your opponent's deck afterwards. Then you have to, mull over your mulligan for 5 minutes or whatever, right? And so on. Like, it'd just be way too easy if you're saying it's like a 50-minute round or something that's best of 3 it'd be way too easy to stall it out if you won the first game, and everyone would be doing it. So that's just it's not a solution, and it's not a solution. In maybe online, you can just do it untimed, right? For the online league, you could do it best of 3, but it's not an option realistically to have a tournament in a store and have 2-hour rounds either. Realistically, right?
No, because venues always have time limits. So
and even if it was an option, like you could construct a pretty decent counter argument that it would be better to just have more rounds and make them best of 1, right? You could argue it both ways, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an argument.
So, but if the point of making it best of 3 is to say that you get to play more games, so that, you know what I mean? Like, if you're better and you play better, and there's less chance of being sort of losing to luck, so to speak, right? Because you get to play more games, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why people want best of 3 generally. So you could achieve that same ends by just still having 1-hour rounds and playing twice as many rounds, right? Or just more rounds generally. So now, I'm not saying you should necessarily play. I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, like, you potentially, because obviously you're not going to play twice as many rounds, but maybe you could offset partially just by playing an extra round or something. So, but time constraints are a very real thing in the store, as we full well know from our last tournament in Melbourne. So where the final didn't, was basically like opponent had to leave before it even finished, right? And didn't even finish the final, basically. So it's this helps, I think. This is a good, compared to the utopian vision of everybody playing faster just because I want them to, where everybody can easily stall their way to victory if they won the first game.
Yeah, but it's not like best of 3 is the only way you have options to sideboard. Like, because you get so much information at the start of a game just by revealing your avatar. Like, the game could easily be reveal your avatar and then sideboard.
Yep, it could be. And I think that's probably where, if you realistically...
That's what I like, but...
Yeah. But I think realistically, in the end, that's where you would be landing with... this type of, like, that's what you would be deciding between, right? Where the direction they've gone versus that type of direction. That's the choice on the table. These are the types of choices that are on the table. The idea that it's going to be best of 3 with full sideboarding or whatever, it's never going to happen. Not maybe online, but not in real life, not in person tournaments. It just can't, because of stores have to close at some point, basically. So
yeah.
Now I can see a downside to the pre-sideboard is
it's a bit hit or miss for sure,
and it does feel a bit. And I get to some degree this phenomenon exists regardless, even with the toolbox version, if we want to call it that. But if you have access to your opponent's deck list, and they don't have access to yours, which obviously in real life sort of can happen because, you saw their deck and they didn't see your deck, basically, right? The pre-sideboard feels a little bit not that fair. To me, at least. Obviously, could argue that both ways, but, like...
Yeah.
Why didn't they finish earlier to see yours instead? But maybe it's because, not necessarily their fault. Maybe they were playing fast and you were playing slow. It's just yours happened to finish faster. And they happen to have a super slow opponent or whatever. So, but I think that's an argument. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I think this is certainly more interesting than the pre-sideboard version.
Yeah, it's just wishes like taken directly out of Magic, effectively. So,
yeah,
which I always liked, but
yeah, well,
I'm not against this at all. I like that it exists rather than it doesn't, for sure. But perfect world would have both.
I mean, it's
also one thing on the goal thing that I mentioned before. I wouldn't bump into it anywhere near as much if it wasn't like 10 cards only. Like I feel like 15 would be fine as well, right? Like the different sizes. But yeah, they've settled on 10. So
yeah, I'm not sure if you remember my point at the start of the video.
That was so many hours ago now. Been...
Deck boxes.
Ah, yeah.
100 cards.
Fair.
Yeah.
I did forget.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I guess realistically, that's the alternative. I still think anyways, all of this sideboarding and this and that and whatever, it's all still, all of this stuff is quite, I don't know, immaterial is a bit strong, but it's not as significant as just simply the massive advantage you get for going first anyway. So I would still say, whilst this is all pretty cool to try to do interesting stuff, to have answers to stuff or whatever, I still feel like it's really important to try to do something about the big overwhelming advantage for going first.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't know. I really like this. When we were assessing, when we were working out our collections, right? Do you think we're basically putting in, let's say, 10 silver bullets that only do something, good under one specific circumstance, and you just have 10 circumstances that you can do something good? Or do you think we're picking stuff that's way more versatile than that?
I think the way you do it is you would be including some very specific hate cards that are like, if you play this against X deck, it's an absolute hoser. But in general, you definitely want to have at least some amount of options that synergize with your deck, that you can just like play it and use it just, for tempo, or, it's just part of like your game plan of having more access to certain cards that do certain things. I think you're always going to want some amount of your toolbox to be stuff that you can always do as like a baseline option. And then on top of that, whatever free slots you have left, that's where you really start getting into the very specific, this is really good against X for X reason, and that's what I want. And I can't have it in my deck because it's too niche, so you can just chill out in the board, and when it's good, maybe you're going to get it every 1 out of 10, 15 games or whatever, but it's an absolute like game changer. But the rest of the time, you're getting this like core set of, picking from like a few different cards, realistically every game. I think that's generally the best way that these are going to be used.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts? I think we're done, right?
One other thing. These things are gonna certainly cause issues when it comes to tournaments that have like a best of 3 top 8 or things like that, or a finals or whatever, where you can actually sideboard. Because all of a sudden you go from having like an actual sideboard that you're going to do sideboard things with to, do I just bring in some of the things from my toolbox and take out other things from my deck that feel, maybe there's 1 or 2 things you could do that with, but it's certainly going to just mean the tournaments that have a sideboard are going to be heavily punished for these things existing.
Oh, I think you can assume that the tournaments that had a sideboard, I think were, as far as I can tell, were almost exclusively reserved to us in Australia. I don't think anyone else in the world was doing that too much. So
sure. And after the last one, we might not get any more of them. After what you did in the fun.
Could be. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But my working assumption here is that this is not intended to work alongside sideboards. This is intended to be instead of them.
You cut out about 15 times there. All I heard was intended.
All right. So for your benefit, I do not think that these are intended to be in addition to sideboards. These are in lieu of.
You cut out right after saying these are.
Okay. No more sideboards. We won't get any more sideboards in our tournaments.
Yeah, okay.
They're not going to exist anymore. I would put money on it. Not a lot of money, but if you want to take the bet, I'll take you up on it. You can bet some sorcery cards or something. Because I think this is the death of sideboards, right? We may still get top 3, best of 3 or whatever in the final, or the top whatever. But no more. So this is the side. Like this is the sideboard. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So this concern about how do you deal with both or whatever. I don't think.
I don't know, but I do think if there is a best of 3, like you would just be able to sideboard with this, because this is your sideboard. So, but what I'm saying is, you then, because it's like you have a toolbox sideboard, you don't have like a real sideboard, or like you haven't designed your sideboard in a way that's like potentially deck morphing. It's more like, oh, I have some cards in my toolbox that I would want to bring in, and some cards that I potentially might want to take out just because they're really bad in the matchup, but not like a transformative sideboard like, you definitely used to do.
Yeah, and I'm saying I don't think that'll happen. I don't think you'll get to sideboard anything in between the games if there is more than one. Could be wrong. There is no separate side. There is no sideboard as such, right? You don't get to change your cards in between games. This is your deck. You play your deck.
This is literally called a sideboard in the article. So it's called both. They call it the collection, and then at another part they call it a sideboard.
No, I'm sure, but okay.
So could just be them not being clear and like probably should
No,
have.
I think I think it's pretty clear. So I think they basically said, how do they do something that's instead of a sideboard, bearing in mind that they want everything to be best of one, basically. Here, best of one identity. So
yeah, there's also a part where if you search sideboard, I'm pretty sure it's in there a few times.
Well, it may be, but I'm just saying, yeah. I'm saying I could be wrong, but I believe that there will be no sideboards or sideboarding between games anymore. It's not a thing. This is the thing. It's not intended to work alongside whatever was happening in some specific tournaments around the world beforehand, which was not many, and I think it was mostly just in Australia. I'm pretty sure just about nobody else in the world was doing sideboards ever.
Yeah, so it means that sideboard is down to the TO's like discretion, right? So it would still just be, if they consider it still just a sideboard, and you can sideboard between games.
Yes,
So
and the one TO in the world that was doing it, I don't believe that one person will do it anymore after this change. Is what I'm saying.
Possibly, yeah.
So I think the concern about how this is going to interact with sideboard, I don't think it's a thing at all. Like, I just don't think it'll be. I think the design intent is that this is it. This is what you get to work with, not what you had before. What you had before is now no longer part of the game, and it wasn't really part of the game anyway. It was only part of the game because of our tournament organizer made it part of the game. So
yeah.
But I think it's certainly interesting for a deck design, basically, right? Really interesting. Because you've gone effectively for us, right? You've moved from a position of, which feels something like you create a deck, potentially spending quite a crazy amount of time doing so, right? To go through the whole process, to do all the play testing, to do all the refinement, to try to make some kind of medical, to tune it against that, and then effectively process is wrapped up, yeah, and then you move on to the second stage of the process, which is working out what the sideboard's supposed to be, right?
I don't think it is a second stage anymore. It's just
no. Now that's completely different, right? It's all wrapped into.
Oh, you're saying that's what we used to do.
Yeah. So you've gone from that, and also with only having to pick basically 60 cards, right, and then 80 cards, and now you basically have to pick more cards in the deck, plus you have to wrap in this separate collection sideboard, whatever you want to call it. It's part of the main process now, right?
Yes.
The main process to create a perfect, well, it's not perfect, you never achieve perfection in this game, but a extremely well-tuned deck. It's a way bigger process. It's going to be a way bigger process.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's not like 60-30-10, but more like 70-30, unless you're playing that Atlas version as well, and then it's, some different combination. But it is like building a 70 card main deck where, cards you don't necessarily want to draw all the time are just part of the toolbox, and potentially some amount of cards that you are happy to draw all the time, that you want to draw all the time, are just part of the toolbox, so you have more access to them, things like that. So
yeah,
it's very much a 70 card deck when these cards are involved.
And I think this profoundly changes the game. Pretty much. I think so. It's not a fringe. It's not a whatever you want to call it. This isn't something that will matter sometimes. Or like this fundamentally changes the nature of deck construction and the game and how do we play it and the power level of cards. And for example, like every single deck is going to have multiple answers to artifacts, pretty much, right?
Yep.
Like what deck?
Unless you're in an element that can't deal with it very well, like water or fire.
Well, water gets to play swap in the sideboard with silver bullets, right? If it wants to.
Yeah. Yep.
Between the toolbox and the silver bullet, every element has really good answers, right? To artifacts in particular. So, like Philosopher's Stone and like Ring of Morrigan to some degree, right, is almost like it's pretty. It compared to now, it's a much worse card because one, bigger deck, harder to get in the first place, and two, assuming that they didn't make like Highland Princess's Sister or something that does the same thing type of thing, which I definitely assuming they won't. So it's just going to be harder to get, less consistent to get, presumably. But then also basically every deck can just deal with it in a way that is not very like expensive as such, right? It's not a big sacrifice to include just a rock in your sideboard if you have to, right? If you don't have any other better way to deal with it.
Yeah, for sure.
And like plenty of decks will, like cards for example, like Disenchant and Dispel have, even those are pretty right now, right? They're quite playable in the main deck, but there's a good chance that plenty of decks now are just going to choose to shift them into the collection, right?
Into the toolbox package, yeah.
So I think it's like a lot of the.
I mean, there is some really interesting things you can do with this, with Common Sense and having one in your sideboard as well. So that you can potentially go get an ordinary from your deck that you wanted to have 4 of in your deck.
Yeah.
Or if you only wanted one Dispel between both sets and it was in your deck, you could go get the Common Sense to go get the Dispel. Things like that. So there's definitely some interesting things. But yeah, I do know what you're saying. There's definitely... I think it's going to be a lot harder to actually have artifacts that stick into play. So I think a lot of the time, just jamming this out on 2 is going to be pretty punishable as well.
Yep. But you get to play... Yeah. So where I was as well, I guess where I was going a bit before with the... If you just including the hate cards in your main deck, but it's making your deck play out less consistently, right? Now you get to play the hate cards in the collection.
Yeah. Yeah, that's obviously the main way it's going to be played. But
so you don't necessarily have to disrupt your deck as much. I don't know. It's just really, at this point, it's like, once these cards exist, pretty much every deck that's really good is only one set away from being completely trash.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I also think the value of Common Sense in general goes down when this card comes into decks.
Yep. But a lot of people would argue that they're not unhappy about that. A lot of people think that card's too good.
Yeah, it's fine.
But basically, whatever deck can possibly exist, all has to be done is to create an ordinary or an exceptional card that doesn't even need to take up a deck slot, right? That just completely hoses it. Like,
I mean, the people who think Common Sense is too good are gonna hate this card.
Yeah.
Well, both of these cards, I should say, but mostly Toolbox.
Well, I think mostly that's said from people that playing decks that don't get to play it, pretty much. So now everybody gets to play it. I mean, everybody can play Toolbox, so...
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty happy where it's all landed, though. So, like... I don't know. I feel this is... Again, it's like I don't think... I never felt like that they were going down... Like, it was really obvious that we're never going to traverse the best of 3 path to me, as we sort of touched upon, but it's... Once you actually think about it, it's... Even if they did, it would have been a massive mistake. And... Yeah. I don't know. To me, the other thing here as well that's not insignificant as a factor is that... I know you're sort of saying that this is just like Wishes in Magic, but there's a good chance that a lot of people wouldn't even know what that is, right? I don't know how...
Yeah, it's definitely a long time ago. It's like
how
Judgment.
relevant they are. So, I mean, that... Because they were relevant when... They were a big part when we were doing all that playtesting 20-something Is that long ago? 22 years ago?
Would have been it would have been over 20 years, I think.
So 22 years ago for extended PTQ in Adelaide. We did a whole bunch of testing, right? We put in, I don't know, it was a crazy amount. And no online or anything back then. We had to do it all in person, right? And
yeah,
it was like, I don't know, it was a crazy amount. And those wishes were a key part of extended back then. And when you were building decks, you were sort of thinking it's basically just cards that just pulled stuff from the sideboard, and then because you had those, you would build the sideboard as basically like this collection mechanic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much. So it's, on the one hand, it's kind of already been done, as you're saying. On the other hand, it was kind of a long time ago, and this is obviously a twist on it, right? Because you're also, it's more than just a few wishes that potentially interact with it, right? It's a lot more cards, and also stuff like the sites and stuff. But my gut feel is with this change as well is that it is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but that this is intended to be just like a permanent part of the fabric of Sorcery or something, right? Like, it's just now part of the game. This is the game. Every time you build a deck,
yeah. Well, I think it has to be, right? Because if this is in lieu of sideboards, which seems like they're definitely making that decision, if it goes away, then the whole sideboard discussion comes back, and we're like, well, we don't have a sideboard anymore. Can we have a sideboard? Yeah. So, yeah, I think these have to be part of the game forever, right?
Yep. And also, if you remember back to that testing I was talking about for extended 22 years ago, when you were, it was interesting choosing what cards to have in the sideboard to fetch with those wishes.
Yeah, I really like them. I think they're a good addition, but I'm just saying that's what they are.
But yeah, I think I really like that the card pool is extended significantly with this as well. I mean, obviously, just regular sideboards would have also extended the card pool as well, but yeah. So, final verdict. It sounded like we were really happy, then it sounded like we were less happy, but are we landed on happy? We're just happy?
Oh, I think we were always just happy, but it was more, everything has positives and negatives, right? And, you just got to sound more unhappy when you're covering the negatives. But I think overall, it's definitely, it's good that it exists. I'm happy it's coming and look forward to it. So,
yeah, I think it's just us. We just kind of...
I think this is probably a bigger change to the game than the whole rules change that came out a few days ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to touch upon it, but it's this profoundly changes the game going forwards. Like, profoundly, I believe. This is absolutely massive. I don't know how big a deal other people have talked about that it is or feel that it is, but I wouldn't sleep on how big a shake-up this will be to the game. Pretty much,
and the fact that there might have been more of them, right? Like you would, I mean, probably not even might. You would assume that there's more than just like what was there? What 4, 5,
I mean,
6 cards?
The obvious thing to speculate here is that there's a unique one that's going to get an elite card, and that there's also a what is it called? Like a
so there's the water 3-drop that came out in the last post, right? And there's no card that interacts with that thing, so you got to assume that card at least exists.
Yeah, that interacts with it somehow.
In some way, yeah. We don't know what it is, but it's probably going to exist. There's the one for the ghoul and one for the demon, so why wouldn't there be?
But I think the big thing here with these collections is that you to just sort of we've skirted all around the edges, but just to explicitly lay it out in case it's just not obvious, right? So if there are specific decks that are dominating the meta, those decks will kind of no longer dominate. Like, once they become too saturated, right, they will inevitably just be worse because it's going to be a lot easier for people to
hate them out.
Hate them out, yeah. So, like, the meta will be more... The
meta will constantly be evolving and warping.
Yeah.
Based on what's popular, and then the toolbox changes, and then all of a sudden, because the toolbox has changed, that deck goes down in popularity, and then the toolbox changes back to whatever it needs to be for the next deck, and then that old deck will rise in popularity again because it's not getting hated on. and vice versa. So
yeah, so it's inadvertently. I wouldn't necessarily the death of Archimago, but I would say it is inadvertently the death of any specific Archimago deck dominating, right? A specific Archimago build, you're always going to be able to toolbox your way out of, or silver bullet your way around it, right?
Possibly.
One specific deck list. But if it may be, unfortunately, you just don't know what, we don't know what card, well, fortunately, we don't know what cards are coming and maybe more things are possible. But I don't know, it's just, I'm never really...
I feel like AM's hard to hate out with just graveyard hate, because unless you're like taking them back to 0 every time they end a turn with 2, a lot of the time it's not so much about the specific card that's in the graveyard. It's just about getting more value out of just having more flashbacks, sort of thing. So it's not, like, sure, craterizing busts from a graveyard is nice, but it's more about just, throughout the whole game, just generating a bunch of extra card advantage. The big thing that is going to cause issues is, like, because so many people are going to play the hate on that, every other deck that relies on the graveyard is just going to get so much splash damage that it can't be played. The Flame Callers, think Deathspeak has got no hope of ever being played again with, like, a toolbox existing with graveyard hate. So those are going to be way more heavily punished than I think.
Yeah, but it isn't just that if you take a specific Archimago deck list, an archetype of it, right, and like if you want to beat it consistently, there's more to it than just playing a spell and then a few sites that remove some cards from the cemetery. Like, there's a lot more that you can do to win that matchup than just that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that's what everybody focuses on. And yeah, it helps, but it's not the only thing that you can do to win those matchups. Right? And I think it's in the rest of it, right? Whether the minion sort of... Are they winning through guards with Boudica, or, Plague of Frogs making lots of tokens and Boudica, or are they going down that path, or are they playing like other types of minions like vampires and whatever it may be, or are they not playing any minions at all, or are they playing Craterize, or are they trying to win some other way, or are they trying to do this? Like, all of that matters ultimately, right? And you can build, if you take any given sort of list, you can easily build a deck that beats that list. The issue is building a deck that beats that list that also can compete against everything else, right? And we can easily build decks that beat Archimago, like, really easily, like some massive percentage of the time, and even most of the archetypes are on list. But the issue is that everything else, basically, that all the other matchups are not necessarily very good. In particular, there's an issue that Druid is really popular, and it's very difficult to build a deck that's consistent against both Druid and Archimago, because they kind of have completely different weaknesses. Yep. So that, in a way, what makes Archimago so good is that Druid is popular. Because if Druid wasn't popular, it would be way easier to be able to play decks that can beat Archimago without being punished by Druid for it. So, but the collection and the toolbox, you can now, you have more tools to work with to be able to, understand these matchups and to be able to beat whatever the deck, whether it's Archimago or otherwise, right? Whatever the popular deck is. And you don't even necessarily have to work it out, quite frankly, either. Other people will work it out, right? Whatever deck is the most popular, everybody will be working out the toolboxes that deal with it the best, right? And all you got to do is copy them, pretty much, right? So it's just like, naturally something's going to happen. The best, most popular decks, people will work out the best toolbox cards for it. It's going to, even if that deck is still the best deck, even with everybody hating on it, potentially, it's not, it may still be the best, but it's going to be a much lower win percentage than it otherwise would be if everybody wasn't hating on it, right? So even though you may have decks that are the best decks, maybe their, overall win rate is, like just 10 percentage points lower or something like that. And once that happens, probably there is some other deck that's way better, just somebody's got to discover it, right? So nobody's worked it out yet. So I think, like you're saying, with the toolbox, the meta now is just going to ebb and flow kind of thing. Like, effectively, the popular decks will be the ones that are hated on, which in turn is going to make them less popular, pretty much, right?
Yeah. I did just have a bit of a thought that just jumped in the front of my mind when you were going on there, but Feast for Crows, I think, just went up like so much in priority in every deck, just to remove toolbox, to completely strip anybody's access to a toolbox, to, you know, their whole sideboard is now just going to be so impactful against effectively every deck.
Well, that's a reason to play Silver Bullet.
Yep. Yeah, so you're probably going to have to play a mix of both. But yeah, no, you know, it used to be like, you know, Grim Feast was always good against most decks, but it was always not Grim Feast. Feast of Crows, there we go. I'm like, that didn't sound right. But yeah, it was always, you know, like some list play it, some don't, and it was always a consideration of which to do. And now, when Toolbox comes in, it seems unlikely you're going to be falling on the side of, oh, maybe I can get away without playing it. But now it's going to be remove so much access to so many hate cards for your deck just by always taking their toolbox.
Yeah, assuming you're playing a deck that's true, obviously. Like, if you're not playing a deck that the hate cards that everybody's playing you care about, then it obviously doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I.e., if you're not playing Archimago or if you're playing something else, it probably doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, but there's probably going to be some hate cards in everybody's sideboard for each deck, right? Like, you know, some amount of something that's going to completely hose you.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like the more meta deck you're playing, the more likely you're going to want to play Feast to get rid of the toolboxes, because the more likely they are that I have multiple cards.
I assume it doesn't get the toolbox. Rather, what's it called? So you name a spell, search opponent's hand, spellbook, and cemetery. Yeah, so anything that's in the collection is safe from it.
Yeah, but they can't access it if you remove the toolbox.
No, yeah, exactly. Sort of, yeah. If it's ordinary, and yes.
No, card toolbox, and they can no longer use toolbox to go get the cards from the sideboard.
But that only, I understand that, yeah. But that doesn't help you if they don't have any toolboxes and they have Silver Bullet. But yeah.
Well, then you choose Silver Bullet, right? Like.
Well, you'd have to know what. Yeah, okay. So I'm assuming you didn't get to look at their deck before you started, and you have to make a judgment call, right? So you'd have to guess. And there may be some other cards here. It's possible that these are not the only 3 cards or whatever it is that interact here.
Yeah, sure.
There could be more, potentially, like a lot. I don't know. I'd be surprised if there's a lot more. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a series of 3 and the sites are a series of 3 and maybe there's 6. And then that'd make it pretty hard making the judgment call between 3. You'd have to be...
Yeah, you just have to know what rarity is the card that hoses your deck and pick that rarity, right? So...
And interestingly, if the hosing card is exceptional or ordinary, I don't know, like you're saying, there's weird antics here, right? Where maybe you want to put like one funeral pyre in the sideboard. Like, I don't know what the Feast of Crows doesn't get that, but yeah, like maybe you're putting one copy in the sideboard so you can still get it even if they feast your main deck to get rid of the rest of the copies of a card.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't know. Weird stuff here. But
in like some kind of combo deck.
Yeah, I'm not sure, honestly, but yeah.
Like if Jin combo is the way you kill someone, you have one Jin in your deck and you have 2 Silver Bullets to go, no, wait, which one would you need? Yeah, so if there's if there's a unique one that gets elites, then all of a sudden you have like 1 Jin in your deck, 1 in your sideboard, which you probably would do anyway in that scenario.
Yep. Don't know. It's really interesting though, and I'm just really trying to say, I think if anybody thinks that this doesn't matter much, I think you're wrong. Like, I think this matters a lot. I think this changes the game profoundly.
It certainly makes it harder to play around any card in particular, because, you know, there's a lot of cards that you're like, well, this could hose me, but you know it's not going to be in someone's deck, and there's certainly a chance it's going to be in someone's sideboard.
Yep. I think there definitely is just scope for... I don't know. Like I said, I think the meta is going to ebb and flow a lot, and potentially all the way back around again, right? Like, you have a deck that's the best deck and everybody hates on it, and then it gets stopped getting played, and then a few months later at some major tournament that just pops up and wins because everybody forgot about it and wasn't hating against it anymore. Like, I can easily see that happening. And I can easily see that there's just going to be constant opportunities to come up with new... Like, there always is in this game. There always has been. There's always been plenty of opportunities to create new deck archetypes that are S tier. The game, always has had a lot of unexplored deck construction space. And this is basically just expanding that space, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much, right? So, in both terms, right? It's expanding the space in terms of using your creativity about what you could put in your collection, but also in terms of just trying to build decks that can come up against different collections, right?
For sure.
So I don't know. I really quite excited about it. I'm not sure. It already felt like we were taking, a bit too long to build decks as it was. So I'm not really that excited to spend Yeah, it
might just be that we build fewer decks, right?
Yeah,
at this point,
think
probably
so.
Don't get to explore as many things as we have been, and that'll certainly, if there's last second rule changes and bans that come up, that's certainly going to hurt us a lot more than it would have in the past. But
yeah, just this feels like it's such an epic journey just to build a single deck at this point, like in a really finely tuned capacity.
It's certainly going to get just harder with every set as well, let alone without all the sideboard effect.
Yeah. But I think so far, like, I like the look of it a lot, and like we're saying, not all the cards, the Release the Hounds doesn't really seem to be doing it for us, and maybe not all of it, but at the end of the day, not every card has to be for us, basically, right?
I was going to say, the rest of it doesn't really matter, right? The fact that this toolbox exists, even if there was no other card that came out with it, we would have been happy.
Yeah. Yep, but some very interesting, I think the main piece of feedback, or that I'm curious about anyway now after all of this is...
It's for drafting?
It's for drafting.
Or for limited in general?
Yeah, because it would just profoundly change the nature of the experience. And for us at least, like, we get like one major tournament every 6 months, something like that, right? And we basically just build a deck. We spend a lot of time to build one deck for one tournament every 6 months. We try and come up with something new each time. And the whole rest of the time, our Sorcery experience is draft and sealed sometimes and draft, right? We just play limited.
Yeah,
we just play locally with a local group, and we just play limited. So for us, actually, I know a lot of people just don't care about limited, but for us, it's actually really important for our enjoyment of the game, right? Like, it would be really sad if the limited gameplay experience of Gothic is really bad for us, right? Because
for sure.
Like we have plenty of Arthurian Legends in beta by now because we're just drafting all the time. Like, everybody's got all the cards they want. Like, obviously everyone's going to want to, when the new shiny set comes out, everyone's going to want to play it. And of course we're going to play it, but it would be really unfortunate if it's not fun or anywhere near as fun as what it was, right? Because Arthurian Legends was, for all of the set's faults, it was actually good for playing limited, right?
Yeah, it was good for what they designed it for.
So
like, they definitely, they hit the mark on that.
So I just, and I say this in particular because the precise interaction between cards like Release the Hounds and how it works with these Hellhounds in limited is really important for how, it's not going to be particularly fun, like you're saying, like it's sealed. You open up your 6 packs or whatever, you get to Release the Hounds and you don't get any Hellhounds. Like, that's going to not feel very good if you had to open them.
Yep.
To play them, right? So the answer to that matters a lot for limited, and for us, again, really important. Any final thoughts here? Don't think there's anything specific with the rules changes that overlap in with this. I don't know if there is... there's one card here that we didn't review before. this City of Glass. We didn't review it in the previous episode. There's one extra card that was revealed that isn't covered before. So do you want to just quickly talk about that before?
Yeah, sure.
Before we wrap up. And I don't know if you remember the other cards, but I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe if anything comes to mind for you. But I don't know if, in light of this new mechanic, if there's some card that we already looked at that is now like completely different. Because...
yeah, I can barely remember the other cards. I mean, so the immediate card that pops to mind, because I just keep thinking about how bad it is Ghoul. Like, is that not the Ghoul? Yeah. The Death Knight? No, the Death Knight.
Yeah, I'll scroll through them. So let's just scroll through them quickly, right? We're doing it in order. We're doing... Was that? Yeah, so it was this one. So, not this one. Not this one, right?
Well, it doesn't change.
These
clearly changed, but not
in
a way that matters.
This one you can grab from your sideboard, potentially, right? This is potentially in a sideboard slot. Yep. This one you can grab from your sideboard with that as well. So this becomes way better.
Very good sideboard, right?
That one's unchanged. Yep.
Yeah, I think Consecrated Ground is exactly what we were even talking about with this card, right? Where we were like, if the meta evolves around evil, it's going to be incredible. And now you can just, if you're playing against an evil deck, like there's just one in your sideboard and you're like, this is incredible. So that's exactly the scenario that we were talking about.
Yeah, this card just is way better, effectively, than what we originally thought it was. Search Party, I think, is
still garbage.
Still the same. This you can potentially now, like, obviously it was probably always pretty good in Archimago, but in other decks, this probably feels okay, potentially, right? As one of the slots, for sure.
Yeah, it's basically like gives Ward like a deck without common sense access to it pretty well, and that's where it was like going to be best outside of AM. So I think it's got even better, and I already really liked it.
I don't think this is likely to be a target. I mean, obviously anything can be.
I think it would be.
Okay.
Not in every deck, obviously, but decks that want that effect, I think they're going to be more than happy to have one of those in their sideboard, because it's not like you're going to play 4 in your main deck if you do want it. Like, but you potentially have one in your board. I think it's going to be pretty strong.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in terms of the main thing that would want it would be Sorcerer to fill out those loose bits of mana, and not. I'm not sure you would want to pay 3 mana for this effect.
It's more in decks that want to, get in damage and then go back to safety, right? You probably don't want to play 4 of them, but I think you'd be more than happy to go get one at the right time.
That could easily be.
Sure.
Obviously, in a reanimated deck, the idea that you now can get an extra instance of this with the 2 support.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say as well. This is like one of those situations that we were talking about before, where it's like you have 2 in your main deck and then you have the 2 tutors for it.
Plus, the thing is, the minion is casting it, and this is nearby location, so it's also potentially matters a lot that you can get it in a lot better spot.
For sure.
I mean, imagine it's something like I know it's not, but I know it's not undead, but I don't know what undead's coming, but there could be something just totally awesome to basically plonk on their side of the board, right? And now you can easily do it. Think of something like Conqueror Worm, right? Something like that, where it just has an immediate impact the turn that you jam it on there. Whatever. I don't mean that exact effect. I just mean something that you do it and it immediately has an impact, basically, right?
Like an Infernal Legion. Isn't that one undead?
Yes. So that's a better example because it actually is undead.
Yeah. So you can't get that one with the sight one.
So you can get this one.
Yeah,
and this,
Carrion Beetles for sure.
Again, all of a sudden, for all the reasons why, because it's actually the fact that it costs 1 is now potentially pretty good, right? Because you can fit it into a turn better without it.
It's also borrowing probably becomes more relevant, right? Because it fills up like 2 potential things that you would want to try and get. Like, maybe at some point in the game you've buried one of their filler or something, or their ring, and you want to go get it. Now you can wish for something that had borrowing, but you wouldn't have had that. You might not have had space to go have that option in your sideboard before. So now it's like a 2-for-1. Where the card gets slightly, you've got it in there because you want the cemetery hate, but it's also got that little bit more flexibility to, in a pinch to go get a borrowing thing.
Yeah. Yeah, these cards definitely This one doesn't, at least at the moment. Not unless it can be fetched with
Yeah.
something. Okay, so that was everything except the ones that are on other places, which I can't. So the other ones were the Gift of the Frog.
Ordinary, right?
Yeah, that was ordinary.
So that might be another one of those things where, like,
Yeah,
you know,
so
because of the awkward casting situation, you might not want it in your side, but, you know, there's a situation that might come up, but it's pretty unlikely that it goes into that part of the board, but maybe in certain decks.
Maybe. I mean, the fact that it's a bit awkward, kind of, you would rather it there than in your deck as well, in a way.
Yeah, but it might be, like, in that awkward enough spot that there's other awkward things that just do better things when you pull off the awkward situations.
Well, it does feel a little bit like
like an unlimited sideboard, you know, you would definitely, you know, collection, when it's actual collection, it's obviously a target, but
you, what was I going to say? I mean, I think the effect doesn't feel particularly powerful for a spot there as well. Like, for something that's awkward, like, and it could be any card in the game that's awkward, it feels like there's probably better effects that you could get than that, if you know what I mean. As well. So I feel like it'd be competing with the, like, generic sort of slot, and you don't really want, like, you typically, I think how it's going to look is you have certain cards that are, like, really narrow and powerful, and then you're just going to want some options that are generic, right? In case none of those powerful situations exist. And it's basically going to be competing with the generic slot whilst being awkward, and that's not a good combination, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
So
less than the sum of its parts.
What were the other ones? It was the Undead Knight thing. Death Knight?
Which I think is, so it was exceptional, right? So it'd be a silver bullet target. And then all of a sudden, the having to tap is also even more punishing, because now if you were if you were casting it off of a unit, that unit wouldn't be able to get pumped and then attack.
Yeah, so that doesn't feel like it's very good for those things.
Yeah.
What were the other? There was another couple. There was Swap, which obviously is a good target.
Yep, great target. There's Cursed Irons or Shackles.
They were elite.
Whatever it was.
They were elite, weren't they?
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm just thinking of cards that existed.
Yeah, yep.
What else was there? What was that one?
I think that's all of them, isn't it?
Maybe. It's all that's popping to mind at the moment, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So last card.
Well, I've got a list of the ones that you sent me the other day.
All right. Tell me what we missed.
Have we missed any? No, Search Party was that really bad card. That's everything that was on that list, but there was a couple that you missed. Which was, we've covered all of those. So, I think that's everything.
Okay. City of Glass then, right? So, City of Glass site, unique site where dreams are made or shattered.
City of Glass for sure. No, I don't know. Like, it's certainly going to have some.
I'll finish the description in case somebody's not watching and listening. So it provides no threshold, but if you have one air threshold, it provides 2 mana instead, but is destroyed when damaged. So I'll let you go. So basically, if you don't have any air sites, it provides 1 mana, and that's it. If you do have,
does it provide 1 mana?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
All sites
still
provide
a
1.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you have an air threshold, it provides 2 instead, but it's destroyed when damaged. So I think also it's, if you don't have any air threshold, if it's damaged, it's not destroyed. I think there's no other way to read this.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
No air threshold, it's not
sense.
destroyed when damaged. It's pretty fringe, but it might matter. I mean, presumably you're not playing this unless you do have air thresholds in the deck.
But you could be in one of those situations where, you know, your threshold's screwed, and then this doesn't give you the double whammy of having it in play and having it blow up when you're already having issues with your sites. So that's, you know, a little nice positive, I guess. But overall, I think the card, it's definitely going to see play, but it is a brutal double-edged sword. Like, it's going to be good when it's good, but I think in general it's probably going to get played in the wrong decks and it's going to lose people a lot of games. But it's a very powerful effect, right? To constantly have a tower acting online, but
yeah,
it's a pretty big drawback.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm trying to wrap... So I think... When is this? So this is obviously better when it doesn't get destroyed. And when it's going to provide 2 mana, obviously, right? So there's obviously a few things you can do that are a bit awkward. Like, I mean, if you have a Root Spider under it, that's probably pretty good, right? In that type of deck.
Yep, sure.
But that requires you having a Root Spider under it, obviously.
It also means you're probably never willing to move your Root Spider from under it.
Which is a bit awkward. I mean, my broad thought is, like you said, like, the types people will, like, I think this will get played a lot in decks that are more aggressive and trying to have a more powerful start, right? And
yeah, I mean, it's pretty good if you, like, combine it with towers as well.
Yep.
So.
But there's another way that this... Okay, so if you conceptualize this in a different way, like, you know, it's played in turn 10 or whatever, right? In the back corner. To take you from 6 to 8 mana or something. So sort of like a tower, right? Do a big 8 mana play. I don't know, Crater Eyes or any other big play. Great Old One, whatever. And probably because it's in the back corner, you pick the corner that they're not near. They're probably not going to damage it. You don't play it when they can damage it the following turn, right?
I mean, that's the dream, but not every situation plays out like that.
Not always, but yep. But that's what you'd be going for, right? So in an ideal world, you get to trying to conceptualize the card, right? Like, is it good, for example, if it allows you to power into a late game big play and potentially get 1, maybe 2 more turns of it? Like, if you conceptualize it like it's 4 mana over 2 turns and then it gets destroyed, quite often that's sort of the value. Like, when we're talking about floors, ceilings, and average, right? So let's say the average is that you get it for 2 turns, but typically you want that to be late game.
So in that scenario, wouldn't just playing a tower the turn you played this and then just playing another site, wouldn't that pretty much just be better in all situations?
Well, okay, so it requires playing another site. That's a whole extra card.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And, well, that's really significant.
Yep.
You say under all situations, I'd say, well, no, not if you didn't need...
Yeah, not all, but
not if you
I think
didn't need
majority
again. Right. I don't think it's insignificant that it's a whole extra card either. Obviously, Tower also provides the air threshold.
Yeah, so I think, like, the big difference for me in that situation of just that is then you don't have the awkward scenario of potentially having to play the City of Glass earlier in the game. Whereas you still would be able to play the tower or any other site without being punished.
Yeah. I mean, I feel,
So,
I think this is bad early game for a variety of reasons.
I think it's in most decks, it's going to be one of those sites that is going to sit in your hand and force you to overdraw sites when you potentially don't want to. Yeah. And then the effect, while being pretty powerful, potentially lost you the game earlier on during the game because you couldn't just jam it and things like that. So, you know, it depends on your deck for sure, whether or not you can get away with having a site like that.
It's obviously better on the play than on the draw because you're going to be ahead on tempo. But, yeah.
It's also, if you say you mulligan 3 sites, right, you affect and drew this as one of your early sites, that's effectively a site you can't play as well. So that's very bad in that scenario. It's basically unplayable as any of your first 3 sites unless you were playing a Root Spider under it on like turn 2.
Yeah, or you don't have any air thresholds.
Sure.
Alright, so Because
but I mean, but also if you've played it in any of your first 3 sites, and you don't have the air threshold. As soon as you play an air threshold, it's still going to be in your starting area where it's probably going to get attacked at some point.
Yeah.
So it's sort of stops you from
when you're starting
playing it.
I think you always mulligan it. Probably right. It's obviously going to depend on the deck.
It's more when you're mulligan into it, right, or draw it early.
But going back to your original point, like it's the wrong decks. I think a lot of those decks are going to be decks that are looking at it through getting off to a good start, which is obviously going to involve having to play it at the start, if that's what it's facilitating, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to be one of those first... It's going to be all of those things, whereas what I was trying to say, okay, so if it's not going to be that good for that, or it's going to be... I don't know, the better way to frame that is it's going to be low floor, high ceiling, basically, right? Boom or bust.
Yep.
Going for that type of play, which isn't our play style, but for some people like playing that way. But if for us, I was trying to think, well, how would we use this? And I was just sort of thinking, well, if you're not going to use it that way, if you're not going to play at the start of the game, when are you going to play? It's going to be, well, presumably after the start, right? At some point.
Yeah.
So the least risky time, I would imagine, is going to be the later in the game, the less risky, presumably, right? For it to get damaged. Yeah. So that's why I'm sort of thinking to go from... And then realistically, it's like, well, if it's so late that you've already got 9 mana, who cares, right? At what point is the mana going to actually help? And I was sort of thinking from 6 to 8, that leap, basically, right? But with air in particular, you've already got a whole bunch of options to pull off that leap. So then it's actually like, well, okay, so it's going to have to be not just to make that leap, but for you to want to also have that mana for multiple turns in a row. It feels pretty narrow, like pretty niche.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, if a deck can somehow protect it from being like, if there's some card that says your site's, I don't know, your City of Glass can never be destroyed somehow. Like, if there's cards that easily do that.
Yeah, the big thing that immediately jumps to my mind with this card is blink existing. It's going to be so easy for people to, like, when you play it, for them to just blink and even just attack it with their avatar.
Yeah. Yeah,
even you're thinking to yourself, "Oh, I'm safe. I can jam it out," and then they just blink and stone.
Well, that's what I was going about. I think the only way you get any kind of safety is to play it in a back corner.
Yeah,
pretty much. And even then, only in certain game states, and even then, only sort of you get it for the turn you played it and the next turn, right? Anything beyond that.
Yeah, I can see this card dying to so many Saracen Raiders.
Yeah. But it'll get played, and it'll be boom or bust.
Yeah, it's certainly not unplayable. It just has to be in the right deck, and I think it's going to end up in so many the wrong deck in so many times that it's going to cost so many people so many games, and then eventually it'll sort of just keep getting lower and lower and lower on people's like list of wanting to play it, that it'll sort of fade out of the meta outside of like the one place where it is like homed well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe 2 or 3, but yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can sort of see this being good in a certain aggro sort of archetypes.
Yeah, like, and in those decks, you probably... It's not the end of the world if you do lose a site, but you could also just be so much on the front foot that they don't have a chance to attack. They have to actually defend the whole time, and then all of a sudden, it's fine. One is there any way to damage a site without just hitting it? I don't think so, right? But I don't know for sure.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, because obviously if there was ways to do that, that would change things as well. But
yeah,
and who knows? Maybe there is in the next set. We don't know, but under the assumption of it just has to be hit, it changes. It is what it is.
It does feel a bit. I'm sure this card's supposed to be, because it kind of feels like we're not that excited about this card, or we don't think it's that good. I think that's the case.
I think the fact that it doesn't have threshold is another big thing for me.
Well, yeah, because the tower does. This is what I mean. Keep comparing it to a tower, and it's like.
I mean, that's where its best comparison is with a tower. So it's a tower with a drawback that doesn't have threshold, but persists, right?
Yeah.
And it's very good in combination with towers. So that's probably where it's at its best. The other thing I've been thinking about is, so if you play it on 1, it obviously gives you the 1. But then if you play an air threshold on the next turn, you're still only getting 1, right? From it. And then further turns, you'd be getting 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even in those situations, it's like, so you can't even just play it and then play a tower to get full juice. It's, so at best, it's only doing that on turn 3. So you'd potentially be going from 3 to 5 mana. So it's a vampire, or a hounds maybe. Not really much else you're trying to go from 3 to 5. Because if it was 2 to 4, is that even particularly better? With double air thresholds, like hippogriffs, they're good when they're down a bit earlier.
Yeah, and also good in regards to your City Glass not getting damaged, right? Because they probably take out whatever might take out the threat as well.
Yeah.
But also, there's only...
But you also can't do that. So
if you're playing mono air, to some degree, there's only so many towers you want to play as well. So it's like, maybe we're saying generally a tower, you'd want to play a tower instead of this, but how many towers do you have before that's no longer true, kind of thing. So,
the very awkward thing when you're trying to play this instead of a tower, though, is if you're trying to use it as a turn 2 tower, it's going to be the site directly in front of you, and that's not where you want this thing.
No,
because it's probably going to get hit and die. And you can't play, if you play it as your first site, it doesn't give you double mana until turn 3. So that also feels pretty bad. It also means if you have any other no threshold sites within your first 3, it's even further away. So you're not even using it in combination with a tower. So maybe you're going from 3 to 4 mana on turn 3 because, you played the tower on turn 2 to turn it on, and then you played the no threshold, and then all of a sudden you've only got 1 air threshold anyway, so you can't cast anything. It's a very, very awkward card, this one, I think, because of the no threshold.
Yeah.
It's a massive drawback to be a thresholdless site as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2 massive drawbacks. Pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Like, it feels... Yeah, well... We'll see if we're wrong. It seems pretty clear that our prediction for this card is that it's not the best card in the set. Pretty much, right? It's not particularly good. I'm sure just because of the nature of what it does, like it'll, like you said, it'll get tried in a lot of decks. The card will probably be worth quite a bit when the set comes out. I think
the card will be worth quite a bit just based on the art as well.
Yeah, this is alternate art, I think.
Oh, okay.
I don't think this is... I think this is like an exclusive... maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not know if I'm going to read the whole article, but... exclusives?
The playmat's exclusive?
Maybe it's not. Maybe I got mixed up. Maybe just the playmat.
Oh, yeah, no, I just saw is alternate art full promo down the alternate art foil promo. What is it? So there, exclusive. You keep. It's the. Oh, stop moving. It.
You're on a delay, obviously. Here, you read it somewhere? Because I thought I read it before.
Yeah, it's in that Star Cities paragraph on the third sentence. Wait, no. I'll pull it up and see what it says. This is not going to happen. I just saw the word alternate art.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
The wait for the launch of the Gothic build full. Yeah, okay. So it's alternate art. So it is alternate art. Yeah. So
yeah, okay.
So it's So it's not the. Yes. So this promo will probably be worth quite a bit. I'm guessing. I don't know. Depending on how many of them exist, obviously it's going to impact the value. But like you said, looks pretty cool. Yeah. Be interesting as well if... Yeah, the drawback just feels huge, pretty much.
Yeah, it feels too big of a drawback for how much it gives you. When it's a double whammy drawback.
But that might. Obviously, this is us. You have to consider who. Like we care way more about the worst case scenario for cards. Basically, like we place a huge amount of emphasis on
consistency.
Yeah, and obviously cards that are in their worst case scenario are game losingly bad. They're cards that we typically try to steer clear of. So, like, I was saying before, it's just a boom or bust card, and that's not us. And maybe this card just isn't for us, kind of thing.
I think if it had a threshold, we would probably, say it was 1 air threshold and it was 2 air threshold to provide the double. In that scenario, there's a good chance we would consider playing this. But I think as it is, there's almost no chance it ends up in our decks.
Yeah. Yep, but other people will play it.
We'll probably try it when it first comes out just to see if it's as bad as it feels. But almost certainly it's not ending up in our decks.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just also because, like, air in particular, like, if it was any other element, it would be a different conversation, right?
I mean, if it was earth, you'd be like, it pairs pretty well with spider consistently.
Yeah, but maybe also all the other elements don't have such easy access to other sites that just provide 2 mana, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so every deck that can't play towers, it's a conversation.
And maybe there is one of these for each element that does the same thing, right? And they just get destroyed when they damage. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, it'd be a different conversation. But I think just because of, like, obviously,
I could definitely see water,
irrespective of the element, like, it's still a massive drawback if it gets destroyed, if it gets damaged. But that would still be true. But yeah, it's just a different conversation just because no other elements have access to, like, a double mana like that. But air does. Air has, like, plenty of access, right?
Yeah, it's got towers, it's got beacon, it's got Merlin's tower. Probably something else, but that's might be it.
Yeah, So,
but still, that's a lot of access.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, again, if tower didn't exist, like we're saying, it would be a different conversation. And it doesn't exist for all the other elements, right? So,
yeah, and that is the different conversation. So,
yeah. But who knows if those cards exist, so I don't think we'll have it. But it's just worth pointing out, I think, that in particular, I think it's just because there are other options that are doing not the same thing, but something similar. That in particular, the drawback just feels really bad compared to the upside, and I think it's just because the upside just isn't that big, that much bigger than a tower, basically, right?
Yeah,
I think is where we land here, but I would still be happy to get one of these alternate art foil versions for my collection, though.
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy to get the playmat because it's one of the wider ones as well.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Well, I'm pretty sure we won't be getting it as a result of attending one of these events that are on the other side of the world to where we live.
Yeah, casual, like, 20-plus hour flight.
Yep. Cool. Nice. Whatever. I think there's maybe a separate, not for today, but another conversation maybe at some point just about the SGC con competitive scene and whatever, but not for today. So I think we can just wrap this up. Do you want to add anything?
Bye.
Yeah, right. No, nothing again. Nothing to add. We always got it all. We always cover it all. We never need to add anything at the end. So, yep.
I mean, we talk for we'll do a quick one for a couple of hours, or like an hour or two, and then it's like 5 hours later. It's like, anything else? Let's go for another 3 hours.
Yeah, I think this is it here. This was the announcement. Yeah. So, yep. But overall, I think, like we're saying, just a balanced view. I think we try not to get too emotional about stuff. Just try and see the pros and cons and lay it out there. So, when it sounds like we're unhappy about stuff with this, we just point it out.
And most of the time, it's more like devil's advocate sort of stuff, right? Where it's you just try and see both sides and what issues are.
We're both very good at playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, most of the time we're having a conversation and we agree with each other and we'll have an argument for like 3 hours about, it's like, well, neither of us are even on the other side. What are we doing?
And that isn't just about sorcery; it's about everything.
Yeah,
I do. Outside, just generally in life, I play devil's advocate to the. It just end up in weird situations in life quite often just because I play it. Just people, like you're saying, people think you're having an argument. You're not having an argument. You're just trying to.
And you're really just trying to flesh out all the angles.
Right? Like, it's just part of it. Right? Like, to me, it's too easy to just hate. Like, it's easy to point out what you don't like about something and the flaws in something, and you get emotional angry about something, right? Like, what's harder to do, and I think it's more valuable in life to try to do this in things. It's better typically when you disagree with somebody to try to steelman. Is that the term? Steelman their argument. Have you heard that one? Do you know?
Don't think I've ever heard
term. So it's where you basically take an argument, agree with it or disagree with it. It doesn't matter. You take any given argument, right, and you just you take somebody's argument when they're debating with you, and the first thing that you do is you don't even debate with them, and you take their argument and you try to make their argument as strong as it can possibly be, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, right, rather than trying to shoot somebody down, you listen to what they have to say, and you try to help them build up their argument to be as strong as possible, and then you start the debate, right? So it's not about winning; it's about trying to reach the correct conclusion, right? Like that.
Yeah. Which is how we sort of do everything.
Yeah, and that's how exactly, right? So that's how we're debating not to have a winner, right? But to arrive at the correct conclusion. So
we are steel men.
Yes, exactly. So I think it's just So obviously when we're talking about these things, that's just how we naturally talk about everything, not just sorcery, but everything, and it shines through, right? Like we purposely trying to find all the things we don't like and find all the things we like, not because we're hating or we're trying to push any specific agenda or whatever, right? Just trying to look at both sides. So, okay, with that said, we'll wrap it up here. On the whole, though, all semantics about steel manning and debating and whatever aside, I think I'm on the whole like really happy. On the whole, I think with this announcement, on the whole, as well as everything recently that's come out as well, like the rules changes. On the whole, happy. The announcements with the partnership with Star City Games, really happy. We'll get into it. I know a lot of people are unhappy about other stuff, but on the whole,
really, I definitely saw that as a positive.
No, that's just straight positive. A lot of people are not so happy about Dragon Lord, but on the whole, I think looking at all these recent announcements, we're not going to get into that now. But on the whole, also not happy is the word, but I can see the pros and cons basically, right? And at the end of the day, whatever you do with these type of things, we're not having that conversation. All I'm trying to say is there's been a whole bunch of announcements recently with Sorcery, and if on the balance of taking all the pros and cons from all the announcements and weighing it all up, I'm very happy, even though in each given thing there's specific details that I'm not happy about some specifics.
It's certainly a positive direction overall.
Yeah, I think it's just, exactly. And I'm excited for the future of the game. I think the Gothic set's looking cool and interesting, and the art's looking great, and the Star City games, like I think all of it, it's all positive, pretty much. Like
you can certainly see they're trying. They're not just coasting.
Yeah,
they're actually putting in a lot of effort to try and build what the community want in general. So that's always a positive.
I just got a good feeling about. I don't know. I got a good feeling about this set, pretty much. This set is in Gothic. I got a good feeling about it. Something that I don't know. It just feels on the whole.
Things I've seen have been good.
I don't know, there's something about it. We were talking about it before, but the cards just feel a little bit more. They just feel more costed correctly on the whole as well. We were talking about this before, but it feels like overall.
I mean,
the amount
you've stopped on the exact card that I don't think is costed correctly. In general, I would agree.
This one's not for... Well, maybe. If this was an Arthurian Legends, I think it might have had 3 or 4.
I feel like this should be 6.
Yeah, probably.
And it's probably in a much better spot. But
if it was in Arthurian Legends, I think it would have 4 fire threshold symbols, potentially, as well. So,
yeah.
I do think 2 fire thresholds is the correct amount of thresholds, and like you said, maybe 6 would be better overall, but I think potentially it was 6, and potentially it wasn't to your avatar's location, and then everybody's complaining about Archmage. So this is a
it's probably like you flip one of those levers, right? Like maybe, it's 7 and it can be summoned anywhere, or it's 6 and on your avatar as the drawback. I think is probably both those options are actually very reasonable, but as it is, I think it's just that little bit too far. Especially when you're comparing it to like other 7s in Fire that exist. Like Major Explosion's almost certainly better. Day of Judgment looks like it's gonna be miles ahead of this card. So it's in some good company of a 7-cost fire spell.
Yeah,
and it ain't those cards.
I didn't mean to stop on the one card that was wrong. It's just on the whole, I think I don't know. I got a good feeling. Like a lot of stuff on, like I said, it's good for a draft to the Arthurian Legends, but a lot of the stuff just feels a bit off. Like a lot of the cards are just not very playable and constructed, and they would be if they were just not everything. A lot of cards just seem to have extra cost, basically, and just to almost make sure that you can't play them in constructed. I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like they overcorrected from beta effectively when there's cards like Grapple and it's like clearly that needed more than one.
Yeah, so there's like an overcorrection, but the issue is that you can still play with beta, right? In constructed, you can use both.
Yeah.
So you got one set that had an overcorrection versus a set that was a bit unbalanced to begin with, and now like the Arthurian Legend cards are like really bad. Like it's one of the reasons why the set's just like the threshold requirements for some cards in constructed are insane in Arthurian Legends. Like some of those.
Yeah, you can certainly imagine when there's like a few more sets out, there's going to be almost no Arthurian Legend cards that even get played.
I mean,
like there'll be a few, but it'll be heavily diminished for sure.
I mean,
like I think Boudica is going to be one of those cards that's always going to be like hanging around. I mean, Morgana, same deal.
But having stuff like 4 threshold symbols, some of these knights, right? Like,
yeah, like if you look at Sir Gareth, man, that guy lost out.
Where's Gareth?
That's Gwen. Gareth is next to him. Yeah. Like this card is utter trash, and it's really hard to cast. Like that seems a little bit rough.
Even this is really like.
Yep.
I'm just saying, like, effectively, right? If you have this,
at least that guy's pretty big, right? Like, and has a pretty decent ability
for constructed.
But yes,
really,
I do agree with you.
Like,
you don't like his ability, or
in constructed, I just don't see you playing him over something that has more power and less threshold symbols, basically. Unless maybe if you're,
I don't know. I think he's pretty solid. Like, because you just jam him down, like it completely stops like Crater Eyes and things like that from killing anything on your board, right? It's pretty good. Or even just it makes it like really hard to burn out small minions and things like that. I think that guy, if those elements were actually played together, I think his biggest issue is that he's earth and water together, which is really hard to sort of pair up effectively.
Yeah.
Like if he was air, fire, water, there's a good chance he gets played.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess all I'm really saying is like I'm looking through all of these. Like played a bit, played a lot, played a bit, played a bit. Played a bit, and these two are played. These two just so happens that Steam is the best combination of elements, and they both happen to be pretty decent.
Yeah,
so it has that. But basically, like this is never played, played a bit. This one's never played. Sorry, I got mixed up. Lamarck has played a bit. I don't think Lancelot's ever played. Mordred was played. I'm not seeing it much anymore. Not even in Steam.
Yeah, I think. As it's basically, he's like a more of a meta call. Like if you're expecting to play against a bunch of Steam, he's pretty good. But if you're expecting more,
he's played a bit, but sort of fell out a bit. I sort of seeing him in a bit. Pellis has played a bit. Pelennor, never see that played. Percival never played. I don't think I ever see this played. So Tom Thumb I never see played, but I think it could be. It just isn't. fine. Tristan seems really bad. Yvain, like, I don't know. They're just, I guess on the whole, what I'm trying to say is like it's off. Like I don't know. The cards just are not quite as powerful as they need to be played and constructed. A lot of them. That's all.
Yep. I think a majority of these are probably like a little bit too expensive as well. So maybe they could be, 1 mana cheaper and keep the thresholds.
Exactly. Or 1 less threshold. Or whatever. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yep. It's just too much.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. I agree with you, but yeah.
And comparing some of this stuff, like, I don't know, it's just so many threshold symbols everywhere, right? And it's just, but not with additional power or reduced mana, basically, right? It's just like the same power level and mana cost as beta, and you just added a whole bunch of extra threshold symbols and stuff. There's exceptions, obviously, like Morgana, but that's how it feels. And I don't know, based on the cards that we've seen revealed so far, it just doesn't feel like there's these stacks of threshold symbols everywhere. Like they're back to
on that page. What's like there's 4 threshold over 6 cards or something.
Yeah, but 2, 1, 1. Well, yeah, but stuff in. I think we've only seen 1 card that even has more than 2 threshold symbols, right? Out of everything that's revealed. Is that true?
What has more than 2?
More than Day 2? Of Judgment has 3, I think.
Yeah, it does.
And I think that's the only one, right? So, like, it's a massive percentage of the cards in the uniques in Arthurian Legends have more than 2.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I don't know. I just gotta. It's not just about that. It's the cost overall. Like we're saying, extra threshold's fine, but it should come with extra power or less mana or something, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can't have like a heap of threshold cost and then just be at the same power level as something else that doesn't have those drawbacks.
I don't know. I got a feeling that there will be just a lot of cards from this set played and constructed, pretty much. I don't know. And we haven't seen... we've not seen hardly anything at the end of the day.
Yeah, we've seen, like 20-odd cards-ish? Something like that.
I heard it somewhere on one of the bigger YouTube channels that said that this is the bigger than beta. I think, and for them to have said it, it must have been officially said somewhere. So,
okay.
So it's.
I mean, even if it's not bigger, like you'd be expecting in the 400 range, right?
Yeah, which a lot of cards, and like we haven't seen an avatar yet, and presumably there are avatars.
Yeah, you would expect it, right?
I mean, it'd be very weird if there wasn't. Very, very weird. So
yeah, I could definitely see them not releasing avatars in further sets down the line, but definitely this early. It feels like you definitely want more avatars.
And actually, we haven't seen. Have we seen 1 unique? 2.
So the site is a unique. What else is unique? The Day of Judgment was unique.
Yeah, is that it? So this City of Glass and the Day of Judgment, is that it?
That might be it.
I think we've only actually seen 2 uniques and no avatars, right? And at the end of the day, that's where a lot of the focus is going to be, right? Like for the really powerful. Yep, I think that's all we've seen. So we've only
I'm just looking at the list now, and I think it is.
So yeah, I guess my point there somewhere is like we've not basically seen anything hardly, right?
Yeah.
In regards to what there could be that's going to shake up the meta. So, I don't know. I just sort of there's something in there to bring it all together that I've heard concerns for sure that people are worried that this set isn't going to be enough to stop Archimago from winning. But one, I don't think it has to be. I think it's fine as long as other avatars are winning as well, right? It's like, it's okay if it's one of many. But 2, I think there will be enough tools here, especially with Toolbox.
I definitely feel like it's coming down a lot in power. I think it's going to be not completely out of the meta or anything, but I don't think it's going to be top dog at all anymore.
But
just from the things we've seen so far.
Yeah, but also...
Just extrapolating from what we've seen so far.
Yeah, but also we've almost seen nothing so far. That's the other thing, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's going to matter a lot what other avatars there are. How can that not matter?
Yep.
Like, of course that's going to matter. For all we know, there's just an avatar that says, like, tap for banish target Archimago or something, right? Like, you just don't... Like, not literally, right? But inadvertently.
Yeah, there might just be an avatar that eats graveyards, right? We don't know.
So, you just... I don't know. I feel like you can't look...
And it's not like it's been getting anything realistically either. Like, it's got toolbox and stuff, but everybody's getting that. And maybe it uses toolbox better than some people, but it's definitely going to get hurt by toolbox a lot more than like other decks. So it's hard to know.
Well, it's hard. Yeah, exactly. I mean, my point here really is just I know people have looked at these cards that have been released and they've basically said, I played with these cards and I still can't easily beat Archimago. And it's like, but that doesn't mean anything hardly, right? Like hardly anything has been revealed. And you just... The fact that you can't take the few cards that have been revealed and consistently beat Archimago, it doesn't basically mean anything, pretty much, right? So, like it,
and they probably weren't testing under 60 cards either.
Probably not. Yeah,
because that's probably going to change things as well. Maybe it's better for AM, maybe it's worse. We don't know yet, but it's certainly going to change the consistency of AM.
Yep.
Especially if like. You know, a lot of the good things that come out aren't spells, like aren't magics in particular. Like all of a sudden, AM falls down in the cards that it's going to get.
That's where I was going before with Release the Hounds. I feel like there's a chance that every magic spell just has 1 or 2 constraints and an extra mana put on it in the whole set.
Well, I mean, if you think of Gift of the Frog, right? Like that could have been really good, but it's got like a bunch of extra little things added to it. That's
we can look through all the magic quickly, but I'm pretty sure it's just the case that there isn't really anything.
It's Day of Judgment, which I don't think changes things. It's Swap, which probably doesn't change anything because you don't really have things you want to swap away. It's Gift of the Frog, which isn't good for it. Return to Nature is obviously very nice.
Yeah, but that's also obviously very nice against it.
Yep, absolutely. Then there's Second Wind.
That's probably, I'm just saying, that particular point of it being very good against it is probably why the card hasn't got all these constraints.
Yes.
If it wasn't good against it, I'm pretty sure it would. So I think what's effectively... Well, my prediction for this set is that all of the Magic cards that would have been good in Archimago have all had restrictions or mana and stuff. Everything's just basically been tweaked to be bad with Archimago so that Archimago gets nothing from the set. That's my... I don't know that, but that's my gut feel based on what we've seen, right? And also just combined with like the amount of noise that there's been. Why wouldn't they do that? Like, clearly the community, wants them to do something about it. So they would, just reacting to feedback, basically. But based on what we've seen, it very much looks like that. Because there's basically, you look at this and Archimago kind of gets nothing from what we've seen so far. Having said that, if there was something good for it, they probably purposely wouldn't want to show it yet anyway, for all the reasons.
I mean, there's a world where Carionets, like all of a sudden there's like a deck where you mill yourself over and over and over, and because you're Archmage, the fact that you mill Carionets is also a good thing by milling Carionets and the target. Yeah. That's a potential thing that could exist if there's a way to mill yourself efficiently, but then there's all the hate cards that you have to try and do it through, so that's also pretty bad. But yeah, that's about the only thing that I've seen that does anything.
Yep. Alright. Well, I'm sure we didn't allay anybody's concerns that's upset about Archimago, but we gave it a go. It's like, all I would say is just, I got a gut feeling that they're listening for sure about everybody being upset about it, and that feedback has been factored into this set. As to what the outcome will be, who knows? But I don't think they've just ignored everybody and they're going to just release a set with a whole bunch of cards that are awesome for Archimago and not give you any tools to deal with it. Like, it's obvious there's tools to deal with it. Like, it's already basically between the tools, literally in the case of the toolbox and whatever, combined with a lot of cemetery. Like, that's already everything you're going to need there. It's just, it may be on you to, work to solve. Like, they haven't solved the problem for you. They've just given you the tools to solve the problem, basically, and it's on the community to work it out. But I don't know. I think that there will be plenty of stuff to be created that doesn't include Archimago, and there already is, by the way, at the moment as well.
Yes. That's the biggest thing for me. Like, it feels like they're going to be printing a bunch of hate that doesn't even need to exist.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's just going to push it down so far that it's just not even really played.
Yep. Yeah, and even for me, it's just, I don't know, if people don't like it, then, like for me, it's sad in a way that if you just sort of, it's partially that sad, but the bigger sad moment really is all the collateral damage. Like, that Death Speaker becomes unplayable, that Flamecooler becomes... Flamecooler's actually pretty fun to play, and actually pretty good now. It's good now. Like, it's one of the best avatars in the game, like, now. Just, it's not played much, but it's really good. Like, we built a really good deck with it, but... And
yeah, pull up.
But, you know, it's impossible to see a world where that's playable at the other end of this episode.
Yeah, but we just enjoy playing Archimago more, so we're not going to let anybody know this amazing deck that we have that just destroys it.
And, yeah, I don't know. And Death Speaker just feels like it's going to come out the other end, not in a very good spot, as we said. And... I don't know, it also feels like they're clearly, with the card on the screen, they're going for some kind of reanimator archetype that also is going to feel pretty awkward to make work with all of the cemetery hate in the game as well.
Yeah, it's like they're bringing out a whole new archetype that's just not going to exist from day one, effectively, because it's just going to be hated out because
Archimago exists, right? Like, this is pretty much just hated out of the game before it even came to exist as well. So it's just, I don't know, my main concern really is with it is just... there'll be a lot of collateral damage from all of the hate. It's also possible that literally all the hate that exists, they showed it to try to, you know, appease people that are upset about Archimago, and maybe there just is nothing else. Like, we've literally seen all of it. But by Archimago hate, I mean cemetery hate in particular, right? Because that's what's ruining all of these other decks. But again, there are ways to hate Archimago, or beat Archimago might be the better way to put it. Because you don't want to... Like, you want the solution, in my opinion, you want the solution to beat any given deck to not be, just include this card and you always win. Like, that's not fun puzzle to solve. Like, you want it to, you know, you don't want it to just be a card that literally says you win whenever you play against this deck. You want it to be like a series of...
You want options. You want a bunch of different levers you can pull to try and, you know, find the right one, find the right combination of ways to, you know, do that thing that you need to do.
Yeah, you want it to be a puzzle for you to solve, right? Like, for it to be a challenge, for it to be fun, for it to be... So, I don't know. I feel like they will be giving extra tools to help with it, but the reality is that the tools already exist, pretty much. I'm pretty sure. It's just... we're in a pretty awkward spot, just with how the tournaments are run, and... Because we can't, you know, we're never quite sure what's going to be banned or not banned, so we have to leave it till the last minute to do anything. And also, we already did build our deck, that our Archimago hate deck. It just happened to have Archimago as the avatar as well. Pretty much, right? Like, our Archimago deck was predominantly built as an Archimago killer, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, you know, and so it's like we already sort of went through the exercise, and obviously that's not the answer that anyone's looking for, that the best way to beat Archimago is with Archimago, but I mean, we did it with a few different avatars as well, like worked out how to do it. It's just we just settled, you know, playing it is more our style, so and obviously all the other matchups matter as well, or what we thought they were going to be at the time when we were building it, and we weren't exactly correct, but I don't know. Just honestly, I don't think of anything we can say too much in this space, and I guess don't know how we've... It's weird, because we obviously play it a lot, and we know a lot about how to beat it, basically, right? Because a big part of winning consistently with Archimago is understanding how you lose, right? And avoiding,
it's understanding the enemy,
the game. Yeah, but also, like, as you're playing the game, as you're doing your mulligan, as you're, you know, choosing whether you're drawing a side or a spell, and doing, like, as you're playing the game, knowing ultimately how the game needs to play out in order for you to be able to win versus how you might lose is really important, right? Like making sure that you dictate the site placements in a specific way, making sure that you mulligan the cards that are not particularly good versus trying to get the ones that are, like, and so on and so forth, right? But it's just part of being able to do all of that also involves understanding how you lose, right? What in order to avoid playing out a game where you result in losing, you need to understand what those lines of play are that result in you losing, and you can take all of that information and build decks, basically, right, that force those lines of play more often, where that Archimago doesn't want, basically, right?
Yes,
is where I'm going with this. So you can force them into bad site placements. You can force them into doing stuff on their turn that they don't want to be doing, right? You can put them on the back foot, but on the back foot in a manner where they're not getting value out of their cards, right? Value out of their plays. It's not all about just getting Funeral Pyres to remove cards from a cemetery to win. Like, you can win through skill, basically, right? So,
absolutely.
And it's obvious as well if you flip all of that around, because, like, we only, we played Earth in our Archimago deck, and we never even played Wormload Tump in the deck, right? Despite everybody playing Funeral Pyres, because we know that Funeral Pyres don't actually matter that much against Archimago if you play in such a way to make them not matter that much, right?
Yeah.
You can ensure that your opponent never gets much value out of them to the degree where you care, basically. So it's, on the one hand,
it's like earlier about, like, all the hate on Archmage for the graveyard in particular. It doesn't so much matter the specific card they take. It's more about the numbers. So, and because there's so few Funeral Pyres, like 3, you have to get through 3. That's doable, right? But, once that number goes up massively next set, and then all of a sudden they might be able to reach the critical mass where, protecting your graveyard with Tump is actually critical. And not so much just for the specific cards, but just for number of cards to actually activate and get get your value that way.
Yeah, it can all change. The only line I was going down is just the main way that people are trying to beat Archimago at the moment is with Funeral Pyre, and it's actually not, and you flip all of that around, and we won the last 2-on-1 leagues between us, and we didn't even play Funeral Pyre. Sorry, Wormload Tump, right? Despite having a whole bunch of Earth sites, only two element, a whole bunch of Earth sites. Way more activatable than any other Archimago decks that are popular, and we chose to not play it because
we just identified it's not a problem.
It's just not a problem.
That's not how you beat it.
So through our lens, the card's not even a problem, and through most people's lens, it's like the main thing you need to do to win against Archimago, right? It's a totally different sense of perspective, basically.
Yeah,
totally different, because it's not like. It's a tool. It's a tool that can help you win, but it's not like it's not even the main way to win, right? The main way to win is through understanding how it takes to win and forcing the game down a path that leads to you winning effectively. And that's going to be different in every matchup. So you need to understand all the matchups. So yeah. But I don't know. I think there's a big point there though, that all of this cemetery hate is kind of perceived as like the main weapon, and we don't even, well, at the moment we didn't even, it's not that you didn't care about it, but basically from our perspective, the Tump didn't justify its spot because its effect of you protecting your cemetery, it just wasn't strong enough, basically, right? Compared to what other sites could do.
Yes.
Right? Compared to Bedrocks, or compared to Gnome Hollows, or compared to Pebble Paths, or compared to Quagmires before the rule change. And so
Rip
on.
Quagmire.
Yeah, like it just wasn't, the effect wasn't as strong as any of those effects. Those other effects were more important, right, to winning than protecting your cemetery. And I'll just say, think about that for a second, because if those effects are more important than protecting your cemetery, and all everybody is focused on is trying to remove the cards in the cemetery, and not focused on all of that other stuff, all of the why all of those other sites are more important, right?
You don't need a flashback divine healing for life when you just don't take damage from all the other sites, right? That's even more effective.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty.
That was a hell of a tangent for we're done, goodbye.
Yep.
And now people can really understand how our conversations go and why everything takes us, 10 times longer.
But we will wrap it up here because it's past my bedtime.
By a fair bit.
Yeah, and I've got to get up early tomorrow. And I only got 4 hours of sleep last night. That probably showed in this conversation, I imagine. So, but it's a pleasure as always. Thanks everyone for watching. And keep safe, keep well, keep enjoying your sorcery, and we'll catch you for the next episode. Cheers.